Do you love novels, but don't have time to read thousands of chapters? Imagine listening to your favorite stories anytime, anywhere, while driving, working, or relaxing. Here, you'll find premium audiobooks from Pocket FM, Audible, Webnovel, Wuxia, and more, all in one place. Every novel is a one-time payment, no subscriptions, no monthly fees, lifetime access. The full novel list and prices are in the description below. Once you choose a novel, just DM me on Telegram, WhatsApp, or Discord. After payment via PayPal, Ko-fi, or Patreon, you get permanent access to the audiobook on Telegram. And if the novel is ongoing, all future updates are included. Check the description, pick your story, and start listening today. Before we start the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Enjoy, and let's go.
401, Chapter 401. With Ryaji's wood breath, Hinaki gradually recovered. "I'm fine," she said. "My body has always been weak. I can't handle intense emotions." Oh. With Ryaji's wood breath, Hinaki gradually recovered. "I'm fine," she said. "My body has always been weak. I can't handle intense emotions or strenuous activity." Hearing this, Ryaji felt a pang of sympathy and held her close. Hinaki nestled into his embrace. After a long hug, Ryaji promised, "I'll heal you. Then you can run freely in the sunshine." He mentally contacted the ultradimensional travel system, hoping for help in freeing Hinaki from her frail body. The system's cold voice responded, "This is beyond the scope of the mission. No assistance can be provided." Ryaji inwardly cursed the system, knowing it wasn't incapable of helping but unwilling. The system could transform him, a normal human, into a powerful being and provide time-altering items. Strengthening Hinaki's body would be trivial. Ryaji considered using wood breath, but it didn't enhance physical strength. It only accelerated healing. It stimulated cell activity, temporarily boosting their efficiency to a peak, accelerating healing. If normal cell efficiency is 30 to 40%, wood breath acts as a catalyst, boosting it to 100% or even 200%. Wood breath only improved cell efficiency, not their strength. Otherwise, Ryaji, a user of wood breathing, would have superhuman strength. Therefore, wood breath wouldn't improve Hinaki's condition. Hinaki looked up at Ryaji. "I believe in you. But I only have about 22 years left." Ryaji was puzzled. What did she mean by 22 years left? Hinaki continued, "As a member of the Yubayashiki family, we're born frail and don't live past 30. This is especially true for males, like father. As father ages, his condition worsens. He doesn't have much time left. Although girls don't experience the same deterioration, we also can't live past 30. It's a generational curse on the Yubayashiki family." Ryaji's expression turned serious. "A curse? Who cast it?" Hinaki continued, "I hope to have our child by the time I'm 16, so I can spend more time with him." Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 402, Chapter 402. Hinaki's statement about having children with Ryaji startled him. He stared at her intently. He wasn't planning on having children yet. Hinaki's statement about having children with Ryaji startled him. He stared at her intently. He wasn't planning on having children yet. He preferred to let things happen naturally. However, Hinaki's words warmed his heart and stirred something within him. Imagine a girl telling you she wants to have your child. The man's feelings would be a mix of joy and complexity. From Hinaki's words and tone, she seemed to have planned her future. Ryaji wondered how Hinaki felt when she learned she only had 30 years to live. Her calm tone suggested she had accepted her fate. "Let's talk about children later. Since the Yubayashiki family knows about the curse, they must know how to break it, right?" Ryaji believed there must be a solution and asked Hinaki. Hinaki nodded, left Ryaji's embrace, sat on the grass, and faced the town. She turned to Ryaji, who sat beside her. She leaned against him and said, "Let me tell you a secret. The Demon Slayer Corps was founded because of the Yubayashiki family curse, a curse linked to Muzan Kibutsuji. Only by killing Muzan Kibutsuji can the curse be lifted. The curse arose from the bloodline connection between the Yubayashiki family and Muzan Kibutsuji. A millennium ago, after Muzan became a demon, the curse fell upon the Yubayashiki family. Children born then died young. To continue their lineage, the Yubayashiki family sought help from a respected priest. Guided by the priest, they learned that only by marrying women from the Jingu family could they lessen the curse's effects. This was only a temporary solution. Children born from these unions, while not dying young, were frail and sickly, never living past 30. As I said, this is especially severe for males. Their bodies deteriorate with age until death, an excruciating process. This secret is unknown to all Demon Slayer Corps members, even the Hashira. You must promise never to reveal it. Hinaki spoke earnestly, her gaze serious. After processing this information, Ryaji nodded. He realized the Demon Slayer Corps' fight against Muzan Kibutsuji was actually a family feud between the Yubayashiki family and Muzan. Revealing this would cause significant turmoil. However, if eliminating Muzan Kibutsuji would break the curse, things would be much simpler. Tier $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 403, Chapter 403. I, Ryaji, will break this curse. Muzan Kibutsuji will die by my hand. Ryaji declared resolutely. Hinaki felt a warmth in her heart but did. I, Ryaji, will break this curse. Muzan Kibutsuji will die by my hand. Ryaji declared resolutely. Hinaki felt a warmth in her heart but didn't respond. It was an incredibly dangerous undertaking, potentially costing Ryaji his life. She didn't want to encourage him to risk his life for her or her family. Burdening him with this felt unfair. Compared to breaking the family curse, Hinaki preferred to cherish the time she had left with Ryaji. I have a question. Answer honestly, okay? Hinaki changed the subject. Ryaji nodded, expecting a question about his love for her. Instead, Hinaki's question shocked him. Between me and Shinobu Koko, whose mouth is sweeter? Hinaki asked slowly. Ryaji's mind went blank. He stared at Hinaki in shock. He didn't immediately answer, simply staring at her. After a long silence, Hinaki, thinking he was trying to evade the question, continued, I know about you and Shinobu. Since you live together, you must have had intimate relations. I'm not blaming you. Because of my age, I can't give you that yet, otherwise, things wouldn't have progressed with Shinobu. Men having multiple wives is normal, and you're entitled to it. There's no need to avoid this topic. Hearing Hinaki wasn't bothered, Ryaji relaxed. When did you find out? Ryaji asked instead of answering her question. From your first time. You've done it 12 times, 13 including last night. Each time lasted about half an hour, indicating good stamina. 3 times. Hinaki recounted without hesitation. Ryaji's heart pounded. Before she finished, he covered her mouth, stopping her. He guessed what she was about to say, something very private. Stop. That's enough. Ryaji said, indicating she shouldn't continue. Hinaki blinked at Ryaji, offering no resistance. Ryaji felt a chill. How did she know so many details? Even he didn't remember everything so clearly. It was as if she'd watched every encounter live. Terrifying. Those events took place in the Butterfly Mansion. Shinobu's residence should be secure. How did you know all this? Tier $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 404, Chapter 404. Ryaji slowly removed his hand from Hinaki's mouth. Hinaki grinned triumphantly, clearly enjoying having teased him. Secret. I'm not telling. Ryaji slowly removed his hand from Hinaki's mouth. Hinaki grinned triumphantly, clearly enjoying having teased him. Secret. I'm not telling. She giggled, sticking out her tongue and making a playful face. Seeing Hinaki's reluctance, Ryaji immediately began tickling her sides and armpits. Hinaki erupted in laughter, twisting and turning to escape his touch. I surrender. I surrender. She pleaded, breathless with laughter. Ryaji stopped immediately and used wood breathing to gently infuse Hinaki with a measured amount of wood breath, helping her regain her composure. Seeing her like this, Ryaji felt only concern. Are you all right? He asked worriedly. Hinaki felt a revitalizing comfort from the faint green glow emanating from Ryaji's hand. She felt incredibly safe under his care. She shook her head. See how anxious you got. Fine, I'll tell you. After Hinaki's explanation, Ryaji understood how she knew about his relationship with Shinobu. Hinaki had used a Yashiro charm and a crow. Since crows were common in the Demon Slayer Corps, this was hard to detect. Ryaji also learned that the Yubayashiki family collaborated with Tamayo and Yashiro. The wisteria poison Shinobu used was initially developed by Tamayo and later refined and improved by Shinobu, who was skilled in pharmacology. Hinaki had obtained a visual sharing charm Yashiro left for Kaguya Yubayashiki, attached it to a crow, and used it to monitor Ryaji. This broadcaster meant Hinaki had been closely observing Ryaji's every move. Ryaji couldn't help but chuckle at Hinaki's cleverness for her age. Ryaji, in a few years, I'll make you completely fall for me. Hinaki hinted playfully. Ryaji understood her meaning, smiled, and pinched her nose. Behave yourself. They spent a long time together before Hinaki declared it was late. It's getting late, I should go back. Ryaji didn't try to keep her. It's time to go. They stood up. Hinaki brushed herself off and, turning to Ryaji, asked, You still haven't answered my question. Whose mouth is sweeter? Yours, Ryaji replied, choosing her. Hinaki smiled faintly. Though she knew he was saying what she wanted to hear, sometimes girls simply enjoy hearing such things. Hinaki leaned towards Ryaji again, closing her eyes. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 405, chapter 405. Knowing this was a signal for a kiss, Ryaji leaned in, and they shared a final kiss before parting. After the kiss, they left the hillside F. Knowing this was a signal for a kiss, Ryaji leaned in, and they shared a final kiss before parting. After the kiss, they left the hillside filled with Hinaki's cherished memories. Ryaji escorted Hinaki back to her residence before returning to the Butterfly Mansion. The mountains were quiet and safe, with no other members active at that hour. Back at the Butterfly Mansion, Ryaji entered the courtyard he shared with Shinobu and Kaneo. He saw Shinobu sitting on the steps outside, watching him. You're back? Shinobu asked with a smile. Yeah, Ryaji replied. I'm back. Ryaji had used the excuse of visiting Tanjiro at Rengoku Manor, unaware that Shinobu had been secretly watching him and Hinaki. Aren't you asleep yet? Ryaji asked. Shinobu shook her head. Ryaji, I wanted you to spend time with me too. Ryaji sensed something was off. Even if they were a couple, Shinobu wouldn't suddenly act so coy. He had also spent time with her yesterday. Shinobu wasn't usually so demanding. If she wanted his attention, she would have pulled him into the room. Shinobu walked over and embraced him. After a moment, she looked up and asked, Ryaji, what's that scent on you? It's not my scent. I probably picked it up while passing through a flower garden, Ryaji replied calmly. So, you were picking wildflowers? Is the grass always greener on the other side? Shinobu asked, her words loaded with meaning. Ryaji was increasingly confused. He couldn't decipher her meaning. No, I just passed through, he said, remaining calm. Passed through? I saw you holding hands. You expect me to believe you just passed through? You're something else, Ryaji. You're even interested in the master's daughter. She's just a child. Shinobu confronted him, lightly punching his chest. Ryaji's expression froze. Shinobu knew too, but she seemed upset, and he didn't know how to respond. He couldn't say, Hinaki approves of you, so you should accept her too. Shinobu would probably beat him up. Could he say, we're in love, you were an accident? That would be too hurtful. Did the master summon you for a late-night snack? Shinobu asked, punching him again when he didn't answer. Calm down. You're a Hashira. Why is your breathing so erratic? Ryaji quickly tried to soothe her. Shinobu wasn't angry about Hinaki but about Ryaji lying to her, claiming to visit Tanjiro when he was actually meeting Hinaki. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 406, chapter 406. Shinobu, having seen Ryaji and Hinaki leave hand in hand without protest, had implicitly accepted Hinaki. However, Ryaji's failure to confess. Shinobu, having seen Ryaji and Hinaki leave hand in hand without protest, had implicitly accepted Hinaki. However, Ryaji's failure to confess upon his return, and his subsequent deception, proved intolerable to Shinobu. As a woman, she naturally resented being deceived by her man. Then confess everything. When did you start seeing the master's daughter? Shinobu commanded Ryaji, asserting her position as his primary partner. Pressured by Shinobu, Ryaji recounted the entire affair. The truth of Ryaji and Hinaki's relationship was quite simple. Their initial meeting at Mount Natagyumo and this recent clandestine meeting there had been little interaction beyond those two instances. While Shinobu found it hard to believe that their affection had blossomed so easily, she noted that both Ryaji and Hinaki shared silver hair, a detail that seemed almost fated. Furthermore, recalling Kaguya Yubayashiki's extreme favoritism towards Ryaji at the last Hashira meeting, Shinobu, upon witnessing Ryaji's rendezvous with Hinaki, suspected a pre-existing betrothal between them. However, Ryaji's explanation shattered that assumption. "So, I'm the one who barged in?" Shinobu challenged Ryaji, expressing her distress. "Forgive my greed, Shinobu. Both you and Hinaki are my women." Ryaji pulled Shinobu into his embrace, firmly declaring his intentions. In that era, a successful man having multiple wives was socially acceptable, so Shinobu harbored few objections to Ryaji's decision. She simply asked, "Then who do you consider the primary wife?" "That's for you two to decide. I think Hinaki won't compete with you, and she already knows about us and accepts you," Ryaji informed Shinobu, revealing Hinaki's awareness of their relationship. With the secret out, Ryaji saw no point in further concealment. Shinobu then asked, "Did you tell her?" Ryaji shook his head. "She discovered it herself." Ryaji then gave a general account of events, carefully omitting the visual sharing charm provided by Yushiro and Hinaki's detailed knowledge of his intimacy with Shinobu. He simply told Shinobu that a crow, sent by Hinaki to monitor him, had inadvertently leaked the information. Shinobu understood that the Demon Slayer Corps' crows were specially trained, highly intelligent, and adept at gathering information within headquarters, where they were generally unhindered. However, Hinaki's actions made it clear to Shinobu that she had initially been uneasy about Ryaji residing at the Butterfly Mansion. The rapid progression of Ryaji and Shinobu's relationship had simply left Hinaki no opportunity to intervene. "So, you two spent all that time together, did you?" Shinobu, setting aside her initial concerns, now focused on the details of Ryaji and Hinaki's private meeting. Ryaji playfully flicked Shinobu's forehead, wryly laughing, "What are you thinking? She's much too young for that." Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 407, Chapter 407. The following days settled into a routine. Kyojuro and the Murata brothers diligently pursued their training, the Murata brothers especially. The following days settled into a routine. Kyojuro and the Murata brothers diligently pursued their training, the Murata brothers especially focused on mastering total concentration, constant. Kyojuro, meanwhile, was temporarily assigned to Rengoku Kyojuro for advanced training alongside Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inashuk. Since Kyojuro also used flame breathing, Rengoku's guidance promised significant improvement, particularly in technique comprehension. While Ryaji had also mastered flame breathing, he chose not to reveal it prematurely. During this period, Aoi Kenzaki, following Ryaji's instructions, met with Tanjiro under the pretense of conducting medical checkups for Inashuk and Tanjiro. The details of their conversation remained unknown to Ryaji. Zenitsu frequently visited the Butterfly Mansion, seeking visual respite from the lovely women there, lest he fall ill from lack of such stimulation. Ryaji visited the injured Sakata Siakairo and Inoue Kenta daily. They were already weaker members of the team, and their injuries further hampered their training. To prevent them from falling too far behind, Ryaji used wood breathing to accelerate their recovery during his visits, enabling their quicker return to training. Thanks to Ryaji's assistance, they recovered significantly within 5 days and immediately resumed training alongside the Murata brothers. A month quickly passed. The 12 Kazuki remained dormant, seemingly deterred by the Infinity Train battle. Ryaji no longer handled low-level missions. These were now delegated to Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Inashuk, and Kyojuro. These missions primarily involved investigating suspected demon activity. With all lower ranks eliminated, the upper ranks were unlikely to roam freely, making it safe to assign these missions to Tanjiro and the others, now officially A-rank demon slayers. Due to the Kazuki's inactivity, Ryaji and the Hashira mostly remained at headquarters, enjoying a period of relative ease. Ryaji and Rengoku's powerful performance against Kokushibo and Akaza had elevated Ryaji's status within the Demon Slayer Corps to equal, if not surpass, that of the Hashira. This was particularly evident with Rengoku, who owed his survival on the Infinity Train to Ryaji. Consequently, Rengoku now held a deep respect for Ryaji. Jiyu Tomioka even offered Ryaji the position of Water Hashira, an offer Ryaji declined. He was unconcerned with titles. Such accolades held little significance for him. Furthermore, Tomioka's gesture suggested he was avoiding something, and Ryaji refused to allow Tomioka to use him as an escape. Because if he become a Hashira, he must take on the mission and responsibility of the Hashira. Tier $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 408, Chapter 408. Days bled into weeks. Within a little over a month, Murata Shinji mastered total concentration, constant. Soon after, Murata Shinichi, Sakut. Days bled into weeks. Within a little over a month, Murata Shinji mastered total concentration, constant. Soon after, Murata Shinichi, Sakata Siakairo, and Inoue Kenta also successively achieved the same. The four, now masters of total concentration, constant, felt profoundly different. Their perception, reflexes, and strength had all undergone a dramatic improvement. They all knew they had become stronger. Following their mastery of total concentration, constant, they each received individual missions one after another. 3 months passed, and winter swiftly arrived, bringing a noticeable drop in temperature and stripping the mountain trees of their leaves. A palpable chill settled over the mountain. During these 3 months, Ryaji spent his days either instructing the Zangetsu squad members or visiting Tanjiro and the others at Rengoku Manor with Nezuko. His evenings were devoted to Shinobu and Amane, alternating between them. Over these 3 months, Ryaji and Amane met frequently, Amane often using crows to deliver notes, arranging clandestine meetings in the secluded hills. With Shinobu now aware of their relationship, Ryaji always informed her of his meetings with Amane, and she readily granted her approval. As a result, Ryaji enjoyed an exceedingly comfortable life, often wishing it would continue indefinitely. One day, Ryaji stood outside, looking up at the sky. The sun was hidden, and the sky was heavy and dark. Moments later, snow began to fall, marking the true arrival of winter. At that moment, Shinobu emerged from the house, carrying a newly finished coat for Ryaji. It was a pure black coat, adorned with numerous patterns of falling white feathers, the tips of which gradually transitioned to a soft purple. This purple seemed to represent Ryaji's demon-like transformation, but more strongly, it represented Shinobu herself, as the tips of her own hair were a similar pale purple. The purple in the feathers symbolized the inseparable bond between them, or perhaps their merging hearts. This detail underscored the profound depth of Shinobu's feelings for Ryaji. Shinobu draped the coat over Ryaji's shoulders, saying, "It's snowing. You should wear something warmer." Though Ryaji, a master of breathing techniques, didn't truly need extra clothing to ward off the cold, his breathing alone sufficed. He understood the deep affection woven into the garment. He slipped his arms into the sleeves and thanked her. "Thank you, Shinobu." The black coat lent Ryaji an air of sophisticated elegance. Just then, Kaneo emerged from the house. She looked at Ryaji and Shinobu, then at the coin in her hand, her gaze recalling Tanjiro flipping that very coin. Noticing Kaneo, Shinobu said, "Kaneo, I made one for you too. I'll go get it now." Tier $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 409, Chapter 409. With that, Shinobu went inside to retrieve the new coat she had made for Kaneo. To Shinobu, Kaneo was not only her adopted younger sister Bu. With that, Shinobu went inside to retrieve the new coat she had made for Kaneo. To Shinobu, Kaneo was not only her adopted younger sister but also like family. Therefore, in addition to making a winter coat for Ryaji, she hadn't forgotten Kaneo's. After Shinobu went inside, Ryaji looked at Kaneo. He was used to her quiet, reserved nature. Although he had lived at the Butterfly Mansion for 3 months, he had barely interacted with her. Besides eating and sleeping, she maintained her rigorous daily training and occasionally went on missions, always returning within 3 or 4 days. Ryaji smiled at Kaneo, who was silently watching him. Unexpectedly, she asked, "Are you and Shinobune-san romantically involved?" Surprised by Kaneo's sudden question, Ryaji wasn't embarrassed. He simply nodded, replying, "Yes." "Then what is being romantically involved? Why do people do it?" Kaneo pressed further. Ryaji found himself struggling to answer. Explaining such concepts to someone like Kaneo, who lacked emotional experience, was proving difficult. "It's about having someone to rely on," Ryaji offered, somewhat vaguely. "If you meet a boy you can't forget, then you should try to be with him." Just as Ryaji finished, Shinobu returned with Kaneo's new coat. Shinobu draped the coat over Kaneo. "Kaneo, do you like it?" Kaneo examined the coat and nodded, "I like it." However, Kaneo's mind was preoccupied with Ryaji's words, which had unexpectedly reminded her of Tanjiro. The memory of Tanjiro flipping the coin for her, a moment that had resonated deeply within her, resurfaced. Tanjiro's absence from the Butterfly Mansion, coupled with Aoi Kanzaki's frequent mentions of him at Rengoku Manor, had created a strange feeling within her. "I'm going out," Kaneo declared, turning and leaving without hesitation, already wearing the new coat. Shinobu, noticing Kaneo's abrupt departure, looked at Ryaji with a questioning expression. "What's wrong with Kaneo?" Ryaji shook his head, indicating he didn't know. Kaneo, leaving the Butterfly Mansion, immediately set off towards Rengoku Manor. Upon arriving at Rengoku Manor, however, Kaneo was overcome with hesitation, unsure of her purpose in seeking out Tanjiro. She realized that Ryaji's words had inadvertently influenced her, prompting her impulsive actions. Tanjiro's earlier advice, "Live according to your heart," echoed in her mind. Without further thought, Kaneo stood before the gates of Rengoku Manor and called out, "Tanjiro." After several calls, only Rengoku Kyojuro appeared. Recognizing Kaneo, Rengoku Kyojuro inquired, "You're Kaneo, Shinobu's adopted sister, aren't you? What is it you need with Tanjiro? He's away on a mission and hasn't returned yet." Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 410, Chapter 410. Hearing Rengoku's answer, Kaneo's mind went blank. She didn't know what to do next. Tanjiro wasn't there. What should she do now? Kaneo felt. Hearing Rengoku's answer, Kaneo's mind went blank. She didn't know what to do next. Tanjiro wasn't there. What should she do now? Kaneo felt completely lost. Seeing Kaneo's silence, Rengoku sighed inwardly. He knew Kaneo's personality. She was a difficult girl to communicate with. "Did Ryaji send you to find Tanjiro?" Rengoku pressed. Kaneo ignored him and silently turned to leave, confusing Rengoku further. He could only watch her go. "What a strange child," Rengoku muttered, shaking his head. Kaneo returned to the Butterfly Mansion, feeling dejected. In the living room of the back courtyard, she saw Tanjiro talking to Ryaji. While Kaneo was out, Tanjiro had returned from his mission and eagerly sought out Ryaji at the Butterfly Mansion to visit Nezuko. Nezuko lay beside Tanjiro, holding his hand to her face. Seeing Tanjiro, Kaneo froze, unable to approach. She didn't know what to say to him in this situation. She felt a sudden wave of shyness. Some time passed. Tanjiro helped Nezuko back into her wooden box and carried it on his back, preparing to leave. As Tanjiro walked out of the room, his eyes met Kaneo's. She snapped out of her daze. "Kaneo, it's been a while. How have you been?" Tanjiro greeted her with a smile. Kaneo stared at Tanjiro, offering no reply. Seeing her silence, Tanjiro, who had hoped she would have changed, felt a little awkward. "Why don't you flip a coin to decide?" Tanjiro suggested. "It's been a while, Tanjiro." Before Tanjiro could finish, Kaneo replied directly, without flipping a coin. Seeing Kaneo speak without relying on the coin, Tanjiro smiled happily. "That's great, Kaneo. You can make decisions without flipping a coin now." Well. Kaneo seemed to want to say something but struggled to find the words, stammering. Seeing her hesitation, Tanjiro looked at her with concern. "Kaneo, what's wrong?" Suddenly, Kaneo grabbed Tanjiro tightly, startling him. "Kaneo, what are you doing?" "Ryaji and I-san said if you meet someone you can't forget, you should hold on to them. I can't forget you, so I'm going to hold on to you." Kaneo repeated Ryaji's words to Tanjiro. Hearing this, Tanjiro turned to look at Ryaji, who was awkwardly emerging from the room. Ryaji-senpai, what did you say to Kaneo? Ryaji coughed. At that moment, Kaneo spoke up. Ryaji and Ai-san and Shinobune-san look so happy and warm together. I can feel how happy Shinobune-san is. I long for that feeling too. Tanjiro, you told me to follow my heart. This is what my heart wants. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 411, chapter 411. Ryaji was at a loss, and Tanjiro looked at him with utter confusion. Ryaji-senpai, what exactly did you say to Kaneo? Tanjiro asked again. Ryaji was at a loss, and Tanjiro looked at him with utter confusion. Ryaji-senpai, what exactly did you say to Kaneo? Tanjiro asked again, perplexed. Tanjiro, shouldn't I be asking you that? What did you say to Kaneo? You wouldn't have done anything to make her unable to forget you, would you? Looks like you're attracting a lot of attention. Not only Aoi Kanzaki, but now Kaneo too. Ryaji, perceptive as always, realized Kaneo's apparent affection for Tanjiro. He hadn't expected Tanjiro to be so popular. Hearing Ryaji and seeing Kaneo's firm grip, Tanjiro felt he couldn't escape this situation even if he jumped into the Yellow River. No way, Ryaji-senpai. That's impossible. Don't you trust my character? Zenitsu is the only one who'd likely do something like that, harassing a girl. Tanjiro vehemently denied. Zenitsu, who was on a mission, sneezed violently upon hearing Tanjiro's words. Ryaji didn't entirely agree. While Zenitsu liked beautiful women, he wasn't someone without scruples. Wait a minute, Ryaji-senpai, how are you dating Shinobu-sama? I didn't even know. Tanjiro suddenly seized on Kaneo's shocking revelation, turning the focus onto Ryaji. Seeing Tanjiro's attempt to shift the focus, Ryaji could only chuckle wryly. That's private, whether you know or not doesn't affect you. You should deal with your own problem first. She likes you. Ryaji said, glancing at Kaneo. Tanjiro looked at Kaneo, who still held him tightly. He'd never been liked by a girl before and didn't know how to react. Should he accept or reject her feelings? Kaneo stared intently at Tanjiro, her grip unwavering. Seeing Tanjiro's inaction, Ryaji gave him a shove. What are you standing there for? Hug her. Show her half the affection you show Nezuko. Despite the shove, Tanjiro hesitated, saying to Ryaji somewhat embarrassedly, that's not right, is it? Tanjiro, making a mistake isn't terrible, what's terrible is refusing to take responsibility, Ryaji continued, advising Tanjiro. Tanjiro cried out in despair, Ryaji-senpai, but I really didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why Kaneo is like this. At that moment, Kaneo pressed the coin into Tanjiro's hand. Tanjiro looked at the coin. Are you asking me to flip this coin to decide whether I should like you? Kaneo shook her head. Ryaji interjected, it's probably a token of affection. Ryaji-senpai, please stop interfering. Tanjiro pleaded, exasperated. Ryaji, not being directly involved, didn't know the specifics of their relationship and couldn't understand the significance of the coin, only guessing it was a token of affection. Tanjiro stared at the coin, remembering Kaneo's habit of using coins to make decisions. Could this coin represent Kaneo's heart? Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 412, chapter 412. Could it be that Kaneo had given him her heart? The more Tanjiro thought about it, the more unsettling it became. My heart has chosen you. Could it be that Kaneo had given him her heart? The more Tanjiro thought about it, the more unsettling it became. My heart has chosen you. What about yours? Kaneo asked Tanjiro. Tanjiro's body trembled. He didn't know how to respond. He'd never considered liking a girl, and couldn't give Kaneo an answer. Kaneo, I can't answer you now. I've never even considered liking a girl, Tanjiro confessed honestly. An honest kid like Tanjiro was unlikely to smoothly win Kaneo over. Ryaji, standing nearby, face-bound. That answer was practically pushing her away. When will you think about this? I'll wait for your answer, Kaneo said, showing no disappointment, giving Tanjiro time to consider. Before Tanjiro could finish, Ryaji covered his mouth and dragged him into a room. Kaneo, Tanjiro needs a quiet space to think. Please wait a moment, Ryaji said, peeking out at the bewildered Kaneo. Then, he slammed the door shut. Kaneo actually waited patiently. If Ryaji hadn't intervened, Tanjiro would have completely rejected Kaneo. As soon as Ryaji released Tanjiro's mouth, Tanjiro exclaimed, "Ryaji-senpai, what was that about?" Ryaji wanted to kick some sense into Tanjiro, but he restrained himself. "Tanjiro, you idiot. Can't you see Kaneo likes you? Why are you so dense? Something must have happened between you two, because a girl like Kaneo, who lacks emotional experience, wouldn't fall for a guy out of nowhere. Tanjiro, you have to take responsibility. You can't reject Kaneo." Ryaji whispered fiercely. "Ryaji-senpai, that's unfair. You can't force a square peg into a round hole. Forcing Kaneo and me together might not be good for her. Besides, Kaneo and I are innocent. Nothing happened between us." Tanjiro looked distressed. "Shouldn't our main priority be defeating Muzan Kibutsuji? This isn't the time for romance." Tanjiro argued. "Don't even start. I know you were the last one to arrive before the Infinity Train mission, and you spent that time with Kaneo, didn't you?" Ryaji countered. "Ryaji-senpai, that was just a simple farewell," Tanjiro desperately explained. "Even Zenitsu, who's so obsessed with beautiful women, didn't go out of his way for a farewell," Ryaji retorted, leaving Tanjiro speechless, like someone eating bitter melon, suffering in silence. Though Tanjiro believed it was a simple farewell, that farewell was the moment he entered Kaneo's heart. Tier $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 413, Chapter 413. But Tanjiro's hesitation ran deeper than just inexperience. "Kaneo is emotionally underdeveloped. She needs you, Tanjiro. You must accept th." But Tanjiro's hesitation ran deeper than just inexperience. "Kaneo is emotionally underdeveloped. She needs you, Tanjiro. You must accept this responsibility. Rejecting her will severely impact her personality, potentially distorting it. The heart she's opened could close forever because of you. Tanjiro, you're kind. Kaneo only has a future with you. You brought her out of her isolated world. You must protect her, just as you protect Nezuko." Ryaji understood Tanjiro's reluctance wasn't a lack of affection for Kaneo, but a lack of experience in romance. Ryaji chose to highlight the gravity of rejection, hoping Tanjiro's inherent kindness would lead him to accept Kaneo. Ryaji knew Tanjiro valued relationships deeply. A relationship with Kaneo, while lacking the grand romantic gestures, would offer a steadfast, genuine affection, the kind most people yearn for. For a child like Kaneo, a kind and honest boy like Tanjiro was the ideal partner. Tanjiro began to waver. Kaneo's openness and willingness to follow her heart were undeniably linked to him. Tanjiro found Ryaji's words reasonable, but his complete lack of romantic experience left him utterly flustered. "Ryaji-senpai, but I've never been in a relationship with a girl before. This is too much to ask." Tanjiro still hesitated. "You idiot. You didn't hesitate or feel shy when you said goodbye to Kaneo, did you?" Ryaji retorted, before instructing Tanjiro. "There's nothing to worry about. Accept Kaneo. Treat her as you normally would. Show her more care and attention, give her half the affection you give Nezuko, treat her like family. If you're still confused, think about how your father treated your mother," Ryaji added, prompting Tanjiro to reflect on his parents' relationship. Tanjiro fell silent, touched by Ryaji's concern. He felt like Ryaji was an older brother, warmth spreading through him. "I'll try," Tanjiro conceded, approaching the situation cautiously. He knew he wasn't naturally adept at making girls happy and couldn't guarantee a relationship as enduring as his parents. Ryaji then opened the door. Tanjiro saw Kaneo still waiting patiently in the same spot, his feelings even more complex. Snow had accumulated on Kaneo's hair, yet she remained unmoved, standing like a statue. Ryaji gave Tanjiro a nudge and a pointed look. Urged by Ryaji, Tanjiro slowly approached Kaneo. Tier $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 414, Chapter 414. Tanjiro's changed mindset made him hesitant to look Kaneo in the eyes. Whenever he mustered the courage, his gaze would invariably drift outward. Tanjiro's changed mindset made him hesitant to look Kaneo in the eyes. Whenever he mustered the courage, his gaze would invariably drift away within a second. Kaneo showed no shyness. As someone with emotional deficits, she experienced little emotion and was rarely affected by them. The smile she often wore was an imitation of Shinobu's sister's expression, not a genuine reflection of her inner feelings. Shinobu's sister always wore a smile, which explained why Shinobu saw a resemblance to her sister in Ryaji. He, too, often wore a smile. "Tanjiro, have you reached a decision?" Kaneo asked, noticing his silence. Tanjiro remained silent for a moment. Ryaji's words had made him realize Kaneo needed protection and was seeking support, and that support was him. Tanjiro struggled to find the right words. Ryaji, watching from the doorway, grew increasingly anxious, fearing Tanjiro would falter at the crucial moment. Finally, unable to find the words, Tanjiro simply enveloped Kaneo in a hug. Perhaps, when words failed, actions served as the most eloquent response. Witnessing this, Ryaji's anxiety vanished, replaced by a relieved smile. Afterward, Tanjiro and Kaneo's relationship officially began. They weren't overtly affectionate, but Kaneo became more clingy towards Tanjiro, and he, in turn, showed her more care. However, Tanjiro still felt shy whenever their relationship was discussed. Zenitsu, upon learning the news, was devastated, almost questioning his life choices. He couldn't accept that Tanjiro, a seemingly emotionless person, had won Kaneo's affection. It took Zenitsu several days to recover from this blow. As one rejoiced, another sorrowed. Aoi Kanzaki, who held a slight affection for Tanjiro, felt a pang of inexplicable sadness upon learning about Tanjiro and Kaneo. Unknown to others, the outwardly cheerful Aoi harbored a fragile heart. Her timidity had led her to avoid further conflict with demons after surviving the selection process. Aoi sometimes consoled herself that Tanjiro and Kaneo were a better match, as Kaneo could face dangers alongside Tanjiro, sharing his burdens. She, on the other hand, was only needed when Tanjiro was injured. Lost in thought, Aoi collided with someone's chest. The person she bumped into was Zenitsu, who was seeking out Kiyo and the others for medicinal treatment. Their injuries were minor scrapes sustained during a mission, but Zenitsu, enjoying the attention from the girls, frequently visited the Butterfly Mansion for this purpose. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 415, Chapter 415. Aoi-chan, what's wrong? Zenitsu, having just recovered from his own emotional turmoil, asked Aoi after she bumped into him. Zenitsu had SP. Aoi-chan, what's wrong? Zenitsu, having just recovered from his own emotional turmoil, asked Aoi after she bumped into him. Zenitsu had spotted Aoi from afar and had called out to her several times, but she, lost in her thoughts, hadn't heard. Just as Zenitsu was about to approach, Aoi collided with him. Startled by the collision, Aoi immediately apologized. "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." Looking up, she saw Zenitsu and her expression turned sour. She changed her tone, scolding him, "You lek. Don't you have eyes when you walk?" Zenitsu was stunned, looking at Aoi in confusion. Despite the scolding, he didn't get angry. He had no resistance to girls, especially cute and pretty ones. "Aoi-chan, are you on your period? You're so irritable," Zenitsu inquired with concern. "No." Aoi denied immediately, clearly disliking Zenitsu. Aoi-chan, I'm here to get my medicine. Could you help me apply it?" Zenitsu quickly sought a reason to interact with her. If Zenitsu weren't so focused on beautiful women, Aoi wouldn't be so averse to him. "I'm busy. Find someone else," Aoi refused, turning to leave. Zenitsu grabbed her hand. "You're distraught because Tanjiro and Kaneo are together, aren't you?" 3 months prior, Aoi frequently visited Rengoku Manor to treat Tanjiro and Inashuk's injuries, and Zenitsu had noticed her affection for Tanjiro. He suspected her current distress stemmed from Tanjiro's relationship with another girl. Aoi froze, then vehemently denied it. "What are you talking about? Let go, or I'll scream." At that moment, Zenitsu felt Aoi's heart tremble, confirming his suspicions. Aoi's inability to accept Tanjiro's relationship with Kaneo had left her despondent and lost. "If you had confessed your feelings to Tanjiro earlier, you wouldn't be feeling this way now," Zenitsu said calmly. This caused Aoi even more pain. She forcibly suppressed her emotions, shaking off Zenitsu's grip. "Are you here to laugh at me, or pity me?" Zenitsu was right. If she had confessed sooner, she wouldn't have been overtaken. However, Aoi had only harbored a fondness for Tanjiro. She hadn't been certain about pursuing a deeper relationship. Cry if you need to. It might make you feel better, Zenitsu said, noticing Aoi's forced composure and unshed tears. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 416, chapter 416. Zenitsu didn't wipe Aoi's tears, despite the chivalrous gesture. He understood their relationship wasn't at a stage where such intimacy was. Zenitsu didn't wipe Aoi's tears, despite the chivalrous gesture. He understood their relationship wasn't at a stage where such intimacy was appropriate. Wiping a girl's tears is an incredibly intimate act. I'm not here to make fun of you, or pity you. I just want to say that some things, once missed, are gone. If you don't let go, you'll only suffer more, Zenitsu continued. Aoi was surprised by Zenitsu's words, sensing their sincerity. It felt as if Zenitsu had experienced something similar. There are plenty of fish in the sea. You might consider a great catch like me. Zenitsu added, abruptly breaking the somber mood. Aoi, enraged by his self-promotion, slapped him. A leopard can't change its spots. She stormed off without looking back. She felt Zenitsu's words were insincere, hence the slap. Aoi believed Zenitsu only wanted her body. Zenitsu, clutching his aching cheek, called after her, undeterred. Aoi-chan, I'm serious. Please consider it. Even if all the men in the world died, I wouldn't consider you. Aoi stopped, turning back to Zenitsu. Seeing that she hadn't completely dismissed him, Zenitsu, emboldened, confessed, I'm serious, I like you, Aoi-chan. Can't you give me a chance? Zenitsu's confession was largely spurred by Tanjiro and Kaneo's relationship. While Zenitsu had always liked Nezuko, he knew it was one-sided. Moreover, Nezuko was a demon, with an uncertain future. Would she ever become human again? Even if she did, would she accept him? The uncertainties, combined with Tanjiro and Kaneo's situation, pushed Zenitsu to seek a girlfriend, planning for his future. Zenitsu's fickleness was his nature. However, he knew choosing someone other than Nezuko meant giving up on her as a romantic partner. This didn't mean completely severing ties with Nezuko. Zenitsu still enjoyed her company. After all, Nezuko was incredibly cute and beautiful. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 417, chapter 417. After experiencing a romantic setback, Aoi found Zenitsu's sudden confession rather peculiar. Had Zenitsu's womanizing reputation not been After experiencing a romantic setback, Aoi found Zenitsu's sudden confession rather peculiar. Had Zenitsu's womanizing reputation not been so deeply ingrained in Aoi's mind, his confession might have been received more favorably. Like me, I've seen you like every woman you've ever encountered. Aoi immediately pointed out. Zenitsu quickly launched into an explanation. That was merely admiration. Liking and admiring are different. I like you, I genuinely like you. Truly. Aoi wasn't fooled by Zenitsu's smooth talk. Of every 10 words he spoke, she only believed one. She doubted his sincerity, given their lack of shared experiences or meaningful interactions. Then tell me, why do you like me? What specifically do you like about me? Aoi, intrigued, decided to play along, wanting to see what excuses he would concoct. Zenitsu, sensing a glimmer of hope, thought rapidly. I like how you get angry, because when you're angry, all your attention is on me. I like how carefully you examine my body, because it makes me feel cherished. I like your adorable nature, because it makes me want to protect you. I like you, no matter how much you hit or scold me, I still like you. Zenitsu, a seasoned flirt, possessed considerable skill in charming women. This heartfelt confession was far beyond the capabilities of simpletons like Tanjiro and Inosuke. Aoi hadn't expected Zenitsu to articulate his feelings so well. Were it not for his notorious womanizing, she might have fallen for his confession. The image of Zenitsu acting like a lovesick puppy around every attractive woman she encountered was deeply off-putting. Will you be my girlfriend, Aoi-chan? I like you. Seeing Aoi momentarily lost for words, Zenitsu seized the opportunity to press his advantage. Unless you can make everyone in the Demon Slayer Corps aware of my feelings for you, I won't become your boyfriend. Aoi didn't immediately accept, instead devising a test, or perhaps a playful challenge, for Zenitsu. If Zenitsu balked at this request, it would demonstrate his lack of commitment and confirm her suspicions of him being a womanizing scoundrel. Aoi would unequivocally reject him. However, if Zenitsu accepted, it might at least curb his tendency to pursue other women. Deal. Forget the entire Demon Slayer Corps. I'll let the whole world know that I, Zenitsu Agatsuma, like Aoi Kenzaki. Don't you dare go back on your word, or I'll spank you. Zenitsu immediately agreed, extending his hand to solidify the agreement. Aoi nodded in confirmation. I won't. Despite his reputation for being a womanizer, Zenitsu's motivations were surprisingly straightforward. He simply desired a girlfriend. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 418, chapter 418. Aoi's test of love for Zenitsu was primarily intended as a playful prank, as she doubted he possessed the audacity to publicly declare his. Aoi's test of love for Zenitsu was primarily intended as a playful prank, as she doubted he possessed the audacity to publicly declare his affection for her throughout the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters. Such a bold move would easily make him appear foolish, and his declaration would likely be dismissed as a joke. The challenge, while seemingly requiring only courage, would ultimately prove ineffective. Zenitsu, however, aimed to use this test to corner Aoi, leaving her with no choice but to accept him. In short, both harbored ulterior motives. Following this, Zenitsu shamelessly asked Aoi to treat his wounds. Distracted from her preoccupation with Tanjiro, Aoi obliged Zenitsu's request, tending to his minor injuries. As days turned into weeks, Zenitsu began formulating his plan to win Aoi over. He wouldn't foolishly shout his feelings throughout the Corps. He devised a strategy, seeking Ryaji's assistance and confiding in him about his situation with Aoi. Ryaji, upon hearing Zenitsu's account, smiled in admiration. He knew Aoi harbored feelings for Tanjiro, but he hadn't anticipated Zenitsu's swift move to pursue Aoi after Tanjiro had found a partner in Kaneo. This action, however, was entirely in line with Zenitsu's character. Of their group, he was the most eager to find a partner. Seeing even Tanjiro, a seemingly emotionless person, find love before him, Zenitsu likely felt the pressure. There might have been an element of desperation, but Ryaji held no prejudice against it. Tanjiro and Aoi were an unlikely pair. Tanjiro, being so honest, wouldn't accept having two wives. One partner in Kaneo was more than enough for him. Therefore, Zenitsu's pursuit of Aoi seemed reasonable. It kept things within their circle. Moreover, Aoi's assertive personality could potentially temper Zenitsu's more impulsive nature, making them a surprisingly compatible pair. Aoi also seemed to prefer handsome men, a trait Zenitsu possessed more than Tanjiro. Excluding Inashuk's rather feminine features, Zenitsu was the second most handsome of their group, with Ryaji being the most handsome. However, after listening to Zenitsu, Ryaji countered, "Zenitsu, does this mean you're giving up on Nezuko?" Zenitsu paused, then nodded. "Ryaji-senpai, it's not that I've changed my feelings, but I feel I'm not suitable for Nezuko. I just want a simple life." Seeing Zenitsu's attempt to maintain his image, Ryaji patted his shoulder, smiling. "No need to explain, I understand. Being with Nezuko carries too much responsibility. You're not suited for it." Ryaji held no resentment towards Zenitsu for his shift in affections, remembering that his initial introduction of Nezuko to Zenitsu was merely to fulfill a promise made on Mount Natagumo. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 419, chapter 419. Ryaji wouldn't force Zenitsu's hand. Abandoning Nezuko, in his view, was a rational decision. Ryaji didn't want Zenitsu burdened by Nezuko's. Ryaji wouldn't force Zenitsu's hand. Abandoning Nezuko, in his view, was a rational decision. Ryaji didn't want Zenitsu burdened by Nezuko's uncertain future. Whether she would ever return to human form, and whether she would accept Zenitsu, were questions with no definitive answers. But, Ryaji-senpai, rest assured, I'll still protect Nezuko with you all. Zenitsu added quickly. Ryaji nodded and thanked Zenitsu. Zenitsu then detailed his plan. Ryaji's role was simple, to gather people. Given Ryaji's current standing, temporarily assembling Demon Slayer Corps members should be feasible. These members wouldn't be those on active duty at the front lines, but rather those from the hidden division stationed at headquarters. Besides the hidden division and injured frontline members, few others resided at headquarters. Frontline members like Tanjiro couldn't stay at headquarters unless absolutely necessary. Even without missions, they found lodging elsewhere, not returning to headquarters. Tanjiro's situation was unique. He was Rengoku Kyojuro's adopted son and a member of the Zangetsu squad, allowing him to stay at headquarters if he wished. Kyojuro and the others could also return to headquarters when not on missions, as dedicated accommodations had been provided. Ryaji's position was secure. His ability to fight upper moons, despite lacking the Hashira title, placed him on par with the Hashira. Therefore, he could choose to remain at headquarters when not on missions. His living arrangements were already settled, with Shinobu's acceptance, rendering further arrangements by Kaguya Yubayashiki unnecessary. The reason frontline members couldn't stay at headquarters was primarily due to the large number of hidden division members already stationed there. There simply wasn't enough space. Even if they returned, while meals would be provided, lodging would be unavailable. Frontline members thus preferred the freedom of staying at inns. Many were stationed far from headquarters, making travel back and forth arduous. The high mortality rate among frontline members also made their return uncertain. Ryaji informed Shinobu of Zenitsu's request, enlisting her help. With Shinobu's assistance, the process went smoothly. Soon, almost all members of the Demon Slayer Corps, excluding the Wind Hashira, Stone Hashira, Mist Hashira, Snake Hashira, and Sound Hashira, agreed to help Zenitsu. Jiyu Tomioka, Water Hashira, Rengoku Kyojuro, Flame Hashira, Mitsurai Kanroji, Love Hashira, and Shinobu Koko, Insect Hashira, all readily participated. Regarding Kaguya Yubayashiki, the Demon Slayer Corps' master, Ryaji chose not to disturb him, knowing from Hinaki that his health was fragile. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 420, Chapter 420. Ryaji didn't invite the Wind Hashira, Stone Hashira, Mist Hashira, Snake Hashira, and Sound Hashira because he wasn't close to them, and Ryaji didn't invite the Wind Hashira, Stone Hashira, Mist Hashira, Snake Hashira, and Sound Hashira because he wasn't close to them, and he knew their personalities. They wouldn't be interested in such an event. It was simply Zenitsu's confession to a girl. Zenitsu was just a typical A-rank frontline member in their eyes. The volatile Wind Hashira was the least likely to attend, especially since he was the Hashira Ryaji interacted with most frequently. The fact that Shinobu only invited Mitsurai Kanroji, Love Hashira, indicated that the other Hashira were unapproachable for this kind of event. Ryaji personally invited Jiyu Tomioka, Water Hashira. As his senior, Jiyu couldn't refuse. Jiyu was even more stoic than Tanjiro. Ryaji hoped exposing him to the atmosphere of romance might bring about some change. Zenitsu personally invited Rengoku Kyojuro, Flame Hashira, as they lived together and interacted frequently. Rengoku readily accepted. Zenitsu had trained under him for a considerable time, making this a simple favor. Zenitsu had prepared a grand surprise for Aoi, aiming to win her over completely. Meanwhile, Aoi, completely unaware, noticed Zenitsu's absence and the lack of any rumors about his confession. She grew disappointed. He's just a smooth-talking womanizer, she muttered. Even without spreading rumors, if Zenitsu had made an effort to bother her occasionally, Aoi would have felt he still cared. What puzzled her was Zenitsu's complete avoidance of her after his confession, as if they were strangers. Zenitsu's absence was due to his meticulous planning and his desire to remain undetected. Why am I even disappointed? He's just a womanizer, Aoi realized, surprised by her own lingering thoughts of Zenitsu. Yawning and stretching, she said, "Time to go to bed." As she stepped out of the infirmary, she ran into Kiyo, Sumi, and Nao. They grabbed her hands, saying in unison, "Come with us." They pulled Aoi away. Aoi was utterly bewildered. Why were these three girls dragging her out so late at night? What's going on? Aoi asked, though she didn't resist much. "Aoi-chan, you'll find out soon enough," Kiyo replied mysteriously. "Just come with us, it's very important," Sumi and Nao added. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 421, Chapter 421. Before long, Kanzaki Aoi was being pulled away from the butterfly mansion by Kiyo, Sumi, and Nao. Outside, snow was falling lightly, Dustin. Before long, Kanzaki Aoi was being pulled away from the butterfly mansion by Kiyo, Sumi, and Nao. Outside, snow was falling lightly, dusting the ground with a thin layer of white. The surrounding trees wore new coats of snow. As they dragged her away from the butterfly mansion, Kanzaki Aoi grew even more puzzled, asking, "Where are we going? It's snowing. We'll catch a cold if we stay out here." "You'll see when we get there." Kiyo replied with a beaming smile, as if something wonderful was about to happen. Kanzaki Aoi, filled with apprehension, was led to the large, empty plaza at the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters. The plaza was particularly dark and silent, as there were no lights illuminating it. Standing in the center, Kanzaki Aoi looked around and asked again, "Why have you brought me here?" Suddenly, the plaza was illuminated by firelight. The source of the light was red candles placed around the plaza, which Kanzaki Aoi hadn't noticed in the darkness until they were all lit, revealing that they had been arranged around the perimeter. The candles were arranged in the shape of a heart, transforming the atmosphere. Kanzaki Aoi stared in shock at the heart-shaped arrangement of candles. Then, a message spelled out in candles was lit, and tears welled up in Kanzaki Aoi's eyes. She covered her face, overwhelmed, feeling as if she were dreaming. The message, burning brightly, read, "I love you, Kanzaki Aoi." As Kanzaki Aoi was still reeling from the revelation, the surrounding walls were lit up, revealing more hearts and the same message, "I love you, Kanzaki Aoi." The light came from candles fixed to the walls. The density of the lights revealed the sheer number of candles and the immense effort involved. Of course, Zenitsu hadn't done this alone. He had enlisted the help of other Demon Slayer Corps members. However, Zenitsu had purchased all the candles, spending his entire savings from his missions. The candles were specially connected, allowing them to be lit simultaneously, which was another significant undertaking. Kanzaki Aoi's mind was blank. Looking at the candlelit plaza and the declarations of love on the walls, she felt like the luckiest girl in the world. While Kanzaki Aoi was lost in her thoughts, Kiyo, Sumi, and Nao quietly slipped away. Somehow, Zenitsu had appeared and was walking slowly towards Kanzaki Aoi, approaching her from behind. Kanzaki Aoi was unaware of his presence. Zenitsu called out softly, "Kanzaki Aoi-chan. I've come to fulfill my promise." The voice behind her made Kanzaki Aoi jump, and she spun around. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 422, Chapter 422. Seeing Zenitsu Agatsuma behind her, Aoi Kanzaki was somewhat at a loss, also not knowing what she should say to Zenitsu Agatsuma. But in fro. Seeing Zenitsu Agatsuma behind her, Aoi Kanzaki was somewhat at a loss, also not knowing what she should say to Zenitsu Agatsuma. But in front of Zenitsu Agatsuma, Aoi Kanzaki still put away those moved tears. And Zenitsu Agatsuma's appearance also made Aoi Kanzaki regain her senses. It can be said that in this romantic scene, Aoi Kanzaki felt that Zenitsu Agatsuma's appearance greatly destroyed this perfect atmosphere. However, thinking about it again, why would Zenitsu Agatsuma appear here again? Could it be that all of these things were created by Zenitsu Agatsuma? Thinking in this way, Aoi Kanzaki's mood became extremely complicated, because apart from Zenitsu Agatsuma, it seemed that there were no other boys who still liked herself. These you made them. Aoi Kanzaki still had not completely recovered from the shock from just now, so when inquiring of Zenitsu Agatsuma, her mouth was still somewhat stuttering. Apart from me, do you think that there would be other boys who would do this? If other boys had even half of my romance, it is estimated that you would have already been chased away by someone else. Zenitsu Agatsuma somewhat proudly, without any shyness, admitted. Zenitsu Agatsuma was naturally a person who would not be too shy towards girls, but also because of this, Zenitsu Agatsuma sometimes often would be too hasty. Do you like this confession grand feast that I specially prepared for you? Zenitsu Agatsuma then again happily looked around at the surroundings, looking at this masterpiece that had put in every member's painstaking effort. Zenitsu Agatsuma at this time was also quite grateful. Hearing these words, Aoi Kanzaki was also all of a sudden stopped in her tracks, because it was facing Zenitsu Agatsuma. Aoi Kanzaki although really wanted to say that she didn't like it, but for Aoi Kanzaki to not like it was impossible. Such a romantic thing, only one man had ever done it for herself, and that was the man in front of her. It's all right. Aoi Kanzaki, pretending to be calm, said. Do you still remember the promise that you made to me? Zenitsu Agatsuma then again inquired. This time, Aoi Kanzaki nodded her head, and then said, although your confession is more romantic than last time, and also made me quite moved, but this has not reached the requirements for fulfilling the promise. It was precisely because the person she was facing was Zenitsu Agatsuma, so even though Aoi Kanzaki was very moved by all of these things that Zenitsu Agatsuma had done for her, she also did not immediately agree to be Zenitsu Agatsuma's girlfriend. But, Aoi Kanzaki's degree of favorable impression of Zenitsu Agatsuma had a very obvious increase. At the very least in her heart there was already a wavering thought. Hearing these words, Zenitsu Agatsuma chuckled. Zenitsu Agatsuma had also already anticipated that Aoi Kanzaki would not agree to his request so easily, but Zenitsu Agatsuma had already made all the necessary preparations, preparing to strike while the iron was hot, and capture Aoi Kanzaki in one fell swoop. It could be seen that Zenitsu Agatsuma pulled up Aoi Kanzaki's hand, and then knelt down on one knee, and then from his bosom took out a gold bracelet engraved with the words, Zenitsu likes Aoi-chan, intending to put it on Aoi Kanzaki's wrist. Zenitsu Agatsuma's further action made Aoi Kanzaki all of a sudden somewhat at a loss, her body also already completely stiffened. Was she to just silently accept in this way, or was she to resolutely refuse? These two kinds of thoughts were fighting in Aoi Kanzaki's mind, making Aoi Kanzaki's heart unusually conflicted. Zenitsu Agatsuma did not rush to put that gold bracelet engraved with words on Aoi Kanzaki's wrist, but instead first said to Aoi Kanzaki, the things that I have promised, I will certainly accomplish them for you. Didn't you want to make everyone in the Demon Slayer Corps know that I like you? Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 423, Chapter 423. I will now let everyone in the Demon Slayer Corps know. Zenitsu Agatsuma revealed an expression as if he was waiting to watch a good show. After that, Zenitsu Agatsuma took a deep breath, and then using his diaphragm to coordinate with his breathing and throat, loudly announced, Zenitsu Agatsuma likes Aoi Kanzaki. Zenitsu Agatsuma wants Aoi Kanzaki to be his girlfriend. Zenitsu Agatsuma wants to be together with Aoi Kanzaki for the rest of his life. I like you Aoi Kanzaki, can you be with me? In the end, Zenitsu Agatsuma used a sincere gaze to look towards Aoi Kanzaki, and asked. As Zenitsu Agatsuma's words were finished speaking, from the plaza's four sides suddenly came the shouts of many people in unison, be together, be together, be together. The sound's momentum was like a rainbow, as if it was echoing throughout the entire Demon Slayer Corps. Aoi Kanzaki was also startled by this sudden scene, and then somewhat nervously looked towards the four sides, and as a result, she discovered that a vast and mighty group of people had all of a sudden surrounded her and Zenitsu Agatsuma in that place. Aoi-chan, Zenitsu Oniakan is a very romantic person, if you are together with him you will definitely be very happy. At this time, Kiyo, who was in the innermost circle, was waving her little hand, and excitedly said to Aoi Kanzaki, That's right, that's right. Zenitsu Oniakan has been extremely busy for this matter during this period of time. Sumi, who was on the side, was also helping Zenitsu Agatsuma with his assist. Aoi Kanzaki was once again shocked by the formation in front of her. This bridge was not within Aoi Kanzaki's expectations. Aoi Kanzaki also had not expected that there would actually be so many people hiding in the dark to watch everything that Zenitsu Agatsuma had planned. Could it be that the candles from just now were lit by them? They had long ago conspired with Zenitsu Agatsuma. Zenitsu Agatsuma had not come to find her for so many days. Could it be that it was in order to plan this confession? The more she thought about it, Aoi Kanzaki felt both wronged and moved, and all of a sudden, her emotions once again lost control and she started to cry. Aoi Kanzaki, with her tears glistening, looked at the large number of members surrounding her. Just from a direct observation, one could know that the vast majority of the members of the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters had definitely arrived. Which is to say, Zenitsu Agatsuma, from a certain point of view, had already been considered to have fulfilled Aoi Kanzaki's request. Unless, Aoi Kanzaki intentionally made things difficult for Zenitsu Agatsuma, in that case, it would have no meaning at all. If the distance between the two people was 100 steps, then Zenitsu Agatsuma had now already taken the initiative to walk 99 steps towards Aoi Kanzaki. If Aoi Kanzaki did not take the initiative to take the last remaining step for Zenitsu Agatsuma, then in reality, these 99 steps that Zenitsu Agatsuma had walked would all be in vain. Because this last step represented Zenitsu Agatsuma's dignity, even if Zenitsu Agatsuma walked the 100th step, if Aoi Kanzaki did not accept, then it would be equivalent to him retreating one step backwards again, making the distance become 101 steps. Therefore, the person who should truly take the last step, in reality should be Aoi Kanzaki, and not Zenitsu Agatsuma. Looking at Aoi Kanzaki, who was so moved that she was crying, Zenitsu Agatsuma also did not go to wipe her tears, because Aoi Kanzaki had not taken that last step. Zenitsu Agatsuma would not make any intimate actions towards Aoi Kanzaki. And just at this time, Ryaji, Shinobu Koko, Jiyu Tomioka, Kyojuro Rengoku, and Mitsurai Kenroji also at this moment flashed into the surrounding crowd. These 5 people were the most influential people among everyone. Ryaji and the others appearing, that was naturally to send their blessings to Zenitsu Agatsuma and Aoi Kanzaki. Sometimes for the consummation of a marriage, it was necessary to have some pushing and encouragement. Tanjiro, Kaneo, Inashuk, and also the members of the Zangetsu second squad led by Kyujo Hattori, also squeezed through the crowd to come to Ryaji and the other sides, and then with looks of joy on their faces, looked at Zenitsu Agatsuma and Aoi Kanzaki. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20+ advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40+ advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80+ advanced chapter. 424, chapter 424. The young people's love really makes one envious. When will I also be able to encounter a boy like this? So happy to be able to witness yo. The young people's love really makes one envious. When will I also be able to encounter a boy like this? So happy to be able to witness your happiness. I am very happy. The love Hashira, Mitsurai Kenroji, could not help but express her feelings, and on her face also revealed an extremely happy smile. Yes, this blazing fire of love has also set my heart ablaze. It is truly wonderful to be young. The flame Hashira, Kyojuro Rengoku, also echoed in agreement with his own feelings. Aoi-chan, Zenitsu is a child with upright character and extremely high potential, you might as well consider him. The insect Hashira, Shinobu Koko, then helped Zenitsu Agatsuma by giving him an assist. Although Shinobu Koko had seen Zenitsu Agatsuma's fondness for beautiful women, but in Shinobu Koko's opinion, this was not any kind of terrible shortcoming. After all, there were still no problems with Zenitsu Agatsuma's character, the most minor fault being that he loved to take advantage of girls whenever he had the opportunity. Congratulations to you both. Even the water Hashira, Jiyu Tomioka, who usually did not have many words, also faintly offered his congratulations. And Ryaji, however, did not say any words, but only looked at Aoi Kanzaki with a smiling face. Aoi Kanzaki looked with a face of disbelief at the love Hashira, flame Hashira, insect Hashira, and water Hashira in front of her. They had actually come, and had come to give their blessings to herself and Zenitsu Agatsuma. Was this a wedding scene or a confession scene? Aoi Kanzaki was already somewhat unable to figure it out. Moreover, she also did not believe that Zenitsu Agatsuma could have gotten these Hashira to come, but these Hashira had not only come, but also seemed to be quite optimistic about her and Zenitsu Agatsuma. Aoi-chan, I wish you and Zenitsu happiness in the future. Tanjiro also simply blessed Zenitsu Agatsuma and Aoi Kanzaki. The reason why Tanjiro was able to say such words of blessing, was because he simply did not know that Aoi Kanzaki had liked him before. Aoi-chan, listen to the voice of your own heart. Kaneo, who was holding onto Tanjiro's arm, also said to Aoi Kanzaki those words that had influenced her the most deeply. What's going on? What is Zenitsu doing? To actually be kneeling before a woman. Inashuk then somewhat uncomprehendingly shouted. Hattori Kyujo also did not say anything, only came to give someone a show of support. In her opinion, if Zenitsu Agatsuma was able to become a little more honest because of Aoi Kanzaki, then that would also be an extremely good thing. The Murata brothers, with bitter expressions, were mutually embracing each other, and then emitted wails that came from single dogs. Aoi-chan, everyone knows that I like you now. Can your promise be fulfilled? Zenitsu Agatsuma once again asked Aoi Kanzaki. In the next moment, Aoi Kanzaki then heavily threw herself into Zenitsu Agatsuma's embrace, causing Zenitsu Agatsuma to be knocked down and lie on the ground. The last step was taken by Aoi Kanzaki in taking the initiative to walk towards Zenitsu Agatsuma. Feeling the body of Aoi Kanzaki in his embrace, and also the sound of her heartbeat that was tightly pressed against his chest, Zenitsu Agatsuma almost excitedly fainted. Ha 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 ha, I also have a girlfriend now. Zenitsu Agatsuma, with incomparable happiness, laughed loudly. It could be said that this was the happiest time that Zenitsu Agatsuma had had in so many years. The members who had gathered into a pile all of a sudden cheered, and then suddenly someone took the lead in driving the atmosphere, saying, "Kiss, kiss." Before long, apart from Ryaji and the others, those members were all saying these three words in unison. Zenitsu Agatsuma and Aoi Kanzaki also, at everyone's request, kissed each other. Mitsurai Kanroji immediately covered her eyes, only daring to peek at this scene through the gaps between her fingers. Shinobu Koko could not help but glance at Ryaji, and Ryaji also exchanged a glance with her. The two of them smiled at each other. It is truly wonderful to be young. Kyojuro Rengoku said with a smile, expressing his feelings. Jiyu Tomioka still had a cold face, appearing out of place with the lively atmosphere. When the atmosphere reached its peak, Zenitsu Agatsuma then lit the enormous fireworks that had been prepared for this confession, and then pulling Aoi Kanzaki's hand, watched with everyone as the fireworks that were blooming with brilliant colors in the dark night. In the courtyard where the Demon Slayer Corps' master lived, Kaguya Yubayashiki heard the sound of the fireworks exploding, and so then murmured to his daughter who was by his side, "Is someone setting off fireworks? It is a pity that I am unable to see them." "Yes, father. There may be members near the plaza setting off fireworks." Among the two daughters, one of them then replied, but it was not known whether the one who answered Kaguya Yubayashiki was Amini or not. And the other one then raised her head to admire those beautiful fireworks. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 425, chapter 425. In this cold winter season, Zenitsu Agatsuma was living an exceptionally warm life, and also because of Aoi Kanzaki, Zenitsu Agatsuma's tea. In this cold winter season, Zenitsu Agatsuma was living an exceptionally warm life, and also because of Aoi Kanzaki, Zenitsu Agatsuma's attitude towards training had become exceptionally serious. Even Tanjiro Kamado was feeling somewhat ashamed of his own efforts. Winter departed and spring arrived, and again several months of time had passed. The Butterfly Mansion, however, at this time welcomed a special guest. This person was none other than the Sound Hashira, Uzui Tengen. As soon as Uzui Tengen arrived at the Butterfly Mansion, he could not help but abduct Aoi Kanzaki and also Kiyo, two people. Aoi Kanzaki did not know Uzui Tengen's purpose, and all of a sudden nervously inquired, "Uzui-sama, what are you intending to do?" "There is a matter that requires you to help out a bit, come with me on a mission." Uzui Tengen also said very directly, without any tone of negotiation. Hearing these words, Aoi Kanzaki all of a sudden became afraid. To go on a mission with a Hashira, how high would the degree of danger be? "If you want to go on a mission, you should go find the members on the front lines. We are only members responsible for medical care, it would be useless even if we went. Moreover, Kiyo is still a child." Aoi Kanzaki immediately disagreed, and then violently struggled. Sumi and also Neo all of a sudden hugged Uzui Tengen's thigh, not allowing Uzui Tengen to leave, saying, "You are not allowed to take Aoi-chan and also Kiyo away. Otherwise, Zenitsu Uniakan will beat you up. This is a mission requirement, I need a few female members. There are already few female members in the Demon Slayer Corps, let alone those remaining at headquarters, there are more girls in the Butterfly Mansion." Uzui Tengen's attitude was still very firm as he said these words. "That won't do. We are not members on the front lines, we have not even a bit of fighting strength, you are showing disregard for our lives." Aoi Kanzaki said with righteous indignation. In her opinion, to make support members who did not have much fighting strength go on a mission, was simply to make them go to their deaths. Uzui Tengen, with extreme displeasure, complained, "How annoying. This mission does not have much danger, it is only to make you go and scout out." Before he had finished speaking, Sumi and also Neo, who were hugging Uzui Tengen's thigh, then bit down on Uzui Tengen's thigh. "I'll let go, you she-tigers." Uzui Tengen all of a sudden cried out in pain. And at this time, Tanjiro Kamado, Zenitsu Agatsuma, and also Inashuk, who had just finished a morning of training, also arrived at the Butterfly Mansion. Tanjiro Kamado and Zenitsu Agatsuma coming to the Butterfly Mansion was naturally to find Kaneo and Aoi Kanzaki. Having only just walked into the Butterfly Mansion for not very long, Zenitsu Agatsuma's sensitive ears heard Aoi Kanzaki's voice and a man's arguing voice, and all of a sudden Zenitsu Agatsuma, as if he had been injected with chicken blood, roared, "Which guy who doesn't know the meaning of death dares to bully my woman?" After he finished speaking, Zenitsu Agatsuma, in a puff of smoke, ran away, his speed as fast as lightning. After running to the courtyard where Aoi Kanzaki and Uzui Tengen were located, Zenitsu Agatsuma lowered his body, and taking advantage of the momentum, used the techniques of thunder breathing. Thunder breathing, first form, thunderclap and flash. All of a sudden, a streak of lightning flew towards Uzui Tengen, and then a sound of extremely clear metal collision rang out, followed by a shuriken flipping over from mid-air, before stabbing into the ground. This sound of metal collision was naturally produced by Uzui Tengen using a shuriken to defend against Zenitsu Agatsuma's attack. It was just that the shuriken was struck out of his hand by Zenitsu Agatsuma using thunderclap and flash. Of course, it was not that Uzui Tengen's strength was not as good as Zenitsu Agatsuma's, just comparing the two people's physiques, it was obviously known that Zenitsu Agatsuma's strength was not as good as Uzui Tengen's. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 426, Chapter 426. The reason why Uzui Tengen's shuriken came out of his hand, was precisely because he had been shocked by the electricity on Zenitsu Agatsuma. The reason why Uzui Tengen's shuriken came out of his hand, was precisely because he had been shocked by the electricity on Zenitsu Agatsuma's blade, his arm went numb, and then the shuriken was struck out of his hand by Zenitsu Agatsuma. In addition, Uzui Tengen was also carrying Aoi Kanzaki and Kyo on his shoulders, and his legs were also being bitten by Sumi and Neo. Therefore, it was not very possible for Uzui Tengen to avoid Zenitsu Agatsuma's lightning-like attack. The characteristic of thunder breathing was precisely this, as fast as lightning, coming without a shadow and going without a trace, every move fatal. "You big oaf. Quickly release Aoi-chan for me, otherwise I will kill you." Having not injured Uzui Tengen with one strike, Zenitsu Agatsuma did not continue to attack, because he was precisely afraid of accidentally injuring Aoi Kanzaki, and also afraid of Uzui Tengen taking Aoi Kanzaki as a hostage. Uzui Tengen looked at Zenitsu Agatsuma. Although Zenitsu Agatsuma's attack from just now had made him somewhat displeased, Uzui Tengen did not make things difficult for Zenitsu Agatsuma, but instead said with considerable surprise, "A thunder-breathing user, the degree of mastery of thunderclap and flash is very high." The reason why Uzui Tengen would be so surprised, was precisely because the sound breathing that he used, was derived from thunder breathing. Therefore, thunder breathing, from a certain point of view, was the origin of sound breathing, just like a mother and child. Zenitsu. After seeing Zenitsu, Aoi Kanzaki's heart was also filled with joy, because now Zenitsu Agatsuma was her man, was a man who could protect her, and was willing to protect her. "Release Aoi-chan." Zenitsu Agatsuma emphasized again, with an appearance as if he was prepared to fight Uzui Tengen with his life. And Tanjiro and Inashuk, who had rushed over belatedly, also sensed that the atmosphere was not right. Inashuk's heart all of a sudden felt happy, and then he said, "Haha, it's going to be a fight. Tanjiro, are we going to help Zenitsu later?" Inashuk, "Help with what? Members are not allowed to fight privately, we have to go and stop them." Tanjiro Kamado was also somewhat helpless towards Inashuk's nature of loving to fight. Just as Tanjiro Kamado was preparing to step forward to smooth things over, Ryaji had already rushed over after hearing the news, and like a ghostly shadow, immediately appeared in front of Zenitsu Agatsuma, and then used his hand to block in front of Zenitsu Agatsuma's chest, seemingly to prevent Zenitsu Agatsuma from acting impulsively. And Ryaji then looked towards Uzui Tengen. Although he was not familiar with Uzui Tengen, Ryaji still knew Uzui Tengen's identity, a Hashira who possessed the name of Sound Hashira. He was also an extremely powerful guy, but compared to Ryaji, he would be somewhat inferior. "Release the people first," Ryaji faintly said to him, his face not carrying any smile. Uzui Tengen looked at the appearing Ryaji, and without too much hesitation, released Aoi Kanzaki and Kiyo. Having been released, Aoi Kanzaki and Kiyo immediately pulled Sumi and also Nao and retreated behind Ryaji. Zenitsu Agatsuma immediately asked Aoi Kanzaki anxiously, "Aoi-chan, are you alright? Did that big oaf do anything to you?" Aoi Kanzaki shook her head, and said, "It's alright. You can rest assured. Uzui-sama would not harm me, he only wants to find female members to go on a mission. We do not have the ability to go on missions, so we all disagreed, but Uzui-sama insisted on us going. That won't do either. Going on missions is so dangerous. It's still safer for you to stay at headquarters. I don't want to lose you. This guy is completely messing around." Zenitsu Agatsuma still said with extreme unhappiness. "Ryaji, you should know that Hashira have the right to take members on missions. Are you planning to make me go alone?" Uzui Tengen then asked Ryaji. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 427, Chapter 427. Since Ryaji would not allow him to take these female members on the mission, Uzui Tengen wanted to see what Ryaji was planning to do instead. Since Ryaji would not allow him to take these female members on the mission, Uzui Tengen wanted to see what Ryaji was planning to do instead. "You should first talk about the details of your mission. What kind of mission requires girls to do it? And headquarters hasn't even issued a notice personally." Ryaji did not give Uzui Tengen a reply, but instead asked in response. This was precisely the abnormal part. If there really was a mission, there should have been a notice from headquarters. All of a sudden, Uzui Tengen was also stopped by Ryaji's question. This operation was indeed not a mission issued by headquarters, but rather Uzui Tengen's own private action. It is only a simple investigation mission, it does not require headquarters to dispatch someone personally. Uzui Tengen simply replied. Hearing these words, Ryaji knew that this was definitely a side job, so he was even more worried about Uzui Tengen taking Aoi Kanzaki away. Right now Aoi Kanzaki was Zenitsu Agatsuma's lifeline. If something bad were to happen to her, Zenitsu Agatsuma would really go crazy, and Uzui Tengen would also very likely become the target of Zenitsu Agatsuma's revenge. Since that is the case, how about I accompany you on this trip? Ryaji then had the thought of personally going on this trip with Uzui Tengen. Ryaji-senpai, I will also go. I also want to go. Tanjiro Kamado and Inashuk Hashibaira both all of a sudden became interested, and immediately planned to go with Ryaji. I will also go. Zenitsu Agatsuma also echoed, intending to take Aoi Kanzaki's place on this trip. It is fine if you all want to go, but it would be best to bring a girl along, it would be better. Uzui Tengen also did not have any objections, but only suggested bringing a girl along. Hearing these words, Ryaji then summoned a Kashagi crow, and then that Kashagi crow said, "Go and call Hattori Kyujo here, just say that there is a mission." After the Kashagi crow received Ryaji's instructions, it flew away. Before long, Hattori Kyujo then followed the Kashagi crow to find Ryaji, and then asked Ryaji, "Ryaji Teiko, what is the mission?" "I don't know the specifics, the initiator of the mission will naturally say it at that time." Ryaji simply explained to Hattori Kyujo. Ryaji did not know, so Hattori Kyujo also did not continue to ask any more questions. After he finished speaking, Ryaji then looked towards Uzui Tengen, and inquired, "When are we setting off?" "I will give you all 15 minutes of preparation time. After 15 minutes, meet me outside the Butterfly Mansion." After Uzui Tengen finished speaking, his entire person suddenly transformed into a puff of white smoke and disappeared from everyone's sight. "You must be careful." Aoi Kanzaki, seeing that everyone was going to go on a mission, then gave Zenitsu Agatsuma instructions. In reality, there was nothing for everyone to prepare, and before long, they all came out of the butterfly mansion. Uzui Tengen was already waiting for Ryaji and his group outside. "Where are we going?" "Big Oaf." After seeing Uzui Tengen, Zenitsu Agatsuma could not help but curiously inquire. "It is a place that can make men sink into depravity, and also the amusement park that can attract demons the most, the red light district. If your girlfriend knows that you are going to that kind of place, she will definitely kill you." Uzui Tengen, with a slightly playful look, looked at Zenitsu Agatsuma, seemingly planning to take Zenitsu Agatsuma to do bad things. "Let's go. There is a wisteria family on the way from here to the red light district, we will make a detailed plan there." After that, Uzui Tengen also did not intend to continue to delay, and in a puff of smoke, again disappeared from everyone's sight. "Keep up," Ryaji faintly said to everyone, and then followed after him. In the blink of an eye, Ryaji and Uzui Tengen had already run far away. Tanjiro Kamado, Zenitsu Agatsuma, Inashuk Hashibaira, and also Hattori Kyujo all quickly followed after them. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 428, Chapter 428. In reality, Ryaji's trip to the red light district with Uzui Tengen was not reported to the organization. Everyone left very impromptu. In reality, Ryaji's trip to the red light district with Uzui Tengen was not reported to the organization. Everyone left very impromptu. The reason why Ryaji only called Hattori Kyujo, and did not call the other members of the Zangetsu second squad, was because the Murata brothers and Sakata Siakairo and Inoue Kenta 4 people had already gone on a mission a few days ago, and had not yet returned temporarily. Even if they had not gone on a mission, Ryaji would not have called them. After all, this mission at first glance was Uzui Tengen's own side job. The Murata brothers and Sakata Siakairo and Inoue Kenta 4 people, now were already considered to be the Demon Slayer Corps' third-tier strength. Their strength was even more powerful than the A-rank members. Therefore, some missions with a relatively high degree of risk, could be done by the 4 of them. Therefore, it was not necessary for the Murata and the others to follow Ryaji in every action, and it was not necessary for Ryaji to bring them along in everything. And the first tier was naturally Ryaji and the Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps, the second tier was Tanjiro Kamado, Zenitsu Agatsuma, Inashuk Hashibaira, and Hattori Kyujo, these 4 people. In this way, for this trip to the red light district, with the people of the first tier and the second tier present, whether the third tier came or not, it was already of no importance. In reality, the creation of the Zangetsu squad was originally specifically to deal with the 12 Kazuki. It was just that the upper rank demons of the 12 Kazuki were already in existence that the Zangetsu squad was unable to cope with, and the lower rank demons, whose strength was several levels lower than the upper rank demons, had also been completely wiped out during the Mugen train incident. This caused the existence of the Zangetsu second squad to be somewhat awkward, because they definitely could not deal with the upper rank demons, and the lower rank demons that they could deal with had already been eliminated, so they could only do some missions that the A-rank members were unable to complete. This was also an arrangement that could bring out their greatest use. If the third-tier Murata and the others were made to follow and participate in the subjugation of the upper-rank demons, then it would also not have any effect, but rather would only result in a pointless death. Therefore, Murata Shinichi, Murata Shinji, Sakata Siakairo, and Inoue Kenta 4 people now could be said to be in a state of retirement. This was also the reason why Hattori Kyujo no longer led the team. The Demon Slayer Corps would also not send them to come into contact with the upper-rank demons, because that level of missions, it was already not their turn to step forward, but rather it was the Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps stepping forward that could resolve it. However, the existence of the Murata and the others, could also very well restrict Muzen Kibutsuji from promoting new lower-rank demons, not giving the newly appointed lower-rank demons room to grow. It was just not known whether Muzen Kibutsuji would go to promote new lower-rank demons again. After an entire day of trekking, Uzui Tengen brought Ryaji and his group to that wisteria family. It was just that it was not the same family that Ryaji had stayed at with Tanjiro Kamado and the others last time. After arriving at this family, Uzui Tengen then, without any politeness, began to order the owner of the house around, and the owner of the house also, without any complaints, did the things that Uzui Tengen instructed one by one. Uzui Tengen and Ryaji's group temporarily rested in one room. The owner of the house prepared some refreshments in the room, and Inashuk Hashibaira was already unable to wait to start eating. Hattori Kyujo also might have really been somewhat hungry, and also picked up a piece of refreshment to eat. Uzui Tengen, however, with a face full of worries, sat on the side, not intending to eat anything. This point made Ryaji feel that this trip to the red light district was not simple. Tier $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 429, chapter 429. After Ryaji left with Tanjiro and the others, Aoi Kanzaki informed Shinobu Koko of the situation. Shinobu Koko, upon hearing this, also fey. After Ryaji left with Tanjiro and the others, Aoi Kanzaki informed Shinobu Koko of the situation. Shinobu Koko, upon hearing this, also felt somewhat puzzled, not knowing why Uzui Tengen would act on his own authority. Moreover, Ryaji had actually taken a team with him to go with Uzui Tengen without even notifying her. Ryaji's behavior made Shinobu Koko feel somewhat angry and helpless, but Ryaji had already left, and it was already impossible to chase him back. Do you know what place they are going to? Shinobu Koko then asked Aoi Kanzaki. Regarding this point, Aoi Kanzaki naturally did not know, and so she shook her head. In the end, Shinobu Koko could only report this matter to the master, Kaguya Yubayashiki, to see how Kaguya Yubayashiki would arrange things. Kaguya Yubayashiki, who was not easily alarmed, after hearing Shinobu Koko's report, did not show any anger, but instead said, "Let them go. We only need to wait for good news." Seeing that the master did not have any plans, Shinobu Koko could only wait at headquarters for Ryaji and the others to return. On the other side, Uzui Tengen, with a face full of worries, suddenly glanced at Ryaji, and then said, "After infiltrating the red light district, you all should first go find my wives. I will be responsible for collecting information about the demons." Hearing these words, Zenitsu Agatsuma, who was drinking hot tea, all of a sudden froze, and then suddenly roared, "What? Find wives? You called us here, just to help you find wives. We are demon slayers of the Demon Slayer Corps, not a marriage agency. Huh, what are you misunderstanding, you blonde brat?" Uzui Tengen, seeing that Zenitsu Agatsuma had misunderstood, also roared at Zenitsu Agatsuma with an unkind tone, because Uzui Tengen did not want to lose to Zenitsu Agatsuma in terms of momentum. Seeing that his words had been interrupted, Zenitsu Agatsuma immediately increased his volume, and pointing his finger at Uzui Tengen, continued to say, "Shut up. Let me finish speaking first. It doesn't even need to be thought about to know that a weirdo like you is definitely not popular, right? But yet, you actually, because you want a wife, called us to the red light district to help you find a wife. How can there be such a good thing in the world? My girlfriend was still found by myself." Zenitsu Agatsuma then continued to bombard Uzui Tengen with impolite words. Ryaji naturally knew that Zenitsu Agatsuma had misunderstood. What Uzui Tengen had originally said was to find his wives. This showed that Uzui Tengen already had wives. It was not to help Uzui Tengen find a wife. "Zenitsu, this is talking about yourself, right? In the past, you were also weird towards girls, not very popular with girls, and also asked me to help you find a girlfriend. If you and Aoi-chan did not have everyone's help, it is estimated that Aoi Kanzaki still would not have agreed to you." Ryaji, at this time, then began to tear down Zenitsu Agatsuma's platform. Hearing these words, Zenitsu Agatsuma all of a sudden felt somewhat embarrassed, and then with a wronged face said to Ryaji, "Ryaji-senpai, can't you leave me a little bit of face?" Uzui Tengen, after hearing Ryaji's words, his anger all of a sudden was not so great, but instead coldly and abruptly complained, saying, "Brat, I am not like you, my wives are all willingly with me. There is simply no need to find them. Then you still said just now to help you find a wife." Zenitsu Agatsuma again said fiercely, "Uzui-san is asking us to go find his wives, he is not saying to help him find a wife. You have misunderstood, Zenitsu." Tanjiro, at this time, then explained, "Oh, is that so?" Zenitsu Agatsuma also somewhat awkwardly scratched his head. Tier $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 430, chapter 430. My wives had already infiltrated the red light district before to collect information about the demons. It was because the periodic contact. My wives had already infiltrated the red light district before to collect information about the demons. It was because the periodic contact was severed that I planned to go to the red light district for a trip. Uzui Tengen then said the purpose of his coming to the red light district. Hearing these words, Zenitsu Agatsuma all of a sudden could understand Uzui Tengen's feelings. For Zenitsu Agatsuma, who had finally gained love with great difficulty, he could most appreciate the importance of a partner. After that, Uzui Tengen then, from a bag, poured out onto the table many letters tied with rope, and then said, "These are the letters that I and my wives used Kashigai crows to communicate with. Inside are pieces of information about the demons." Ryaji roughly estimated, there should be about 100 or so letters. So many letters, they must have infiltrated for a long time now, right? Tanjiro Kamadu said, and could not help but casually pick up a stack of envelopes and open them to read. After all, Uzui Tengen had taken the initiative to show them, so there was no situation where they could not look at them. Hattori Kyujo was also curiously examining these letters, because Uzui Tengen had said that there were pieces of information about the demons inside. Hearing these words, Uzui Tengen replied, "Not long, because I have 3 wives, unlike someone who has difficulty finding even one wife." Uzui Tengen's reply was said with such a triumphant tone, and also did not forget to ridicule Zenitsu Agatsuma a bit. Three wives? You are deliberately trying to anger me, right? Zenitsu Agatsuma, after hearing this, sure enough, was very surprised and shouted loudly. That sound was deafening, and filled with disbelief. "I am not that bored. Besides, I am a Hashira with super strong strength, elegant demeanor, and also an unusually flamboyant appearance. To be liked by women, that is a situation that is only too normal. To have 3 wives, is too normal." Uzui Tengen then began to boast about himself. Obviously he was also very proud of himself for having 3 wives. Ryaji did not feel that there was anything, because he himself had 2 women, Shinobu Koko and Hinaki, so it was also a pretty normal thing for Uzui Tengen to have 3 wives. And Zenitsu Agatsuma, after exclaiming in surprise, also was not angered by Uzui Tengen, but instead said, "Your 3 wives wouldn't all look like Ruhua, would they?" If Uzui Tengen's 3 wives all looked like Ruhua, then Uzui Tengen having 3 wives like that, Zenitsu Agatsuma would also feel that it was normal. It was just that as soon as Zenitsu Agatsuma said these words, Uzui Tengen, without any politeness, punched him on the stomach, all of a sudden knocking Zenitsu Agatsuma down onto the tatame, rolling his eyes, and his feet also twitching a few times from time to time. Uzui Tengen's punch would not cause any actual harm to Zenitsu Agatsuma, it would only make Zenitsu Agatsuma feel extremely painful. "Your wives are the ones who look like Ruhua. My 3 wives are all beauties with superior looks," Uzui Tengen said with much displeasure. At this time, Ryaji did not go to examine the letters one by one, but instead directly asked Uzui Tengen, "Then in the information that you obtained, what is the key information?" Hearing these words, Uzui Tengen calmed down his emotions, and then said, "From these pieces of information from my 3 wives, I learned that there are 3 courtesans in the red light district who are the most suspicious. They are respectively Suma of the Tokaido house, Makio of the Ajimoto house, Hinatsuru of the Kigoku house. Therefore, what you all must do is infiltrate these 3 establishments, find my wives, and also confirm which courtesan is the demon. This is the reason why I wanted to bring along girls. Only girls can better infiltrate the inside and come into contact with the courtesans." Uzui Tengen then continued to explain the situation in detail to Ryaji and the others. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 431, chapter 431. Hearing these words, Ryaji looked at Hattori Kyujo, and then asked directly, clarifying the matter, "Then your meaning is to have Kyujo go T?" Hearing these words, Ryaji looked at Hattori Kyujo, and then asked directly, clarifying the matter, "Then your meaning is to have Kyujo go to these 3 establishments to become a Yujo?" Hearing Ryaji's question, Uzui Tengen sized up Hattori Kyujo. With Hattori Kyujo's looks, infiltrating the inside would naturally not be difficult at all, perhaps she would even be cultivated into a new courtesan, who knew. However, Hattori Kyujo was, after all, a member of the Demon Slayer Corps, so naturally it was impossible for her to stay in the red light district for her entire life. It is not to have Kyujo infiltrate as a yujo, but rather to infiltrate as a geisha, only selling her skills and not selling her body. If there really are customers who want to force themselves on her, then she can resist and run away. With her skills, it should not be difficult for her to escape. However, with Kyujo's looks, perhaps there is a real possibility that she will be cultivated by the establishment as a courtesan, so in the short term, she should be safe. Uzui Tengen explained to Ryaji. Ryaji Teiko, rest assured, I am fine. If it really comes to a last resort situation, I will find a way to escape. Hattori Kyujo then said to Ryaji, indicating that Ryaji did not need to worry too much. After all, it was only infiltrating the establishment to gather information, it was not really to sell her body. Hearing these words, Ryaji nodded, and did not say anything more. And at this time, Tanjiro Kamado then somewhat uncomprehendingly asked, Uzui-san, there are 3 establishments that are suspected, but there is only one Hattori Kyujo, how are we going to investigate the other 2 establishments? What Tanjiro Kamado said was indeed correct, there was only one Hattori Kyujo, it was impossible for her to run back and forth between the 3 establishments at the same time, even if she could, it would be extremely easy to arouse other people's suspicion. Uzui Tengen revealed a mischievous smile towards Tanjiro Kamado, seemingly saying with ill intentions, if you ask that question, then you all will have to choose 2 more people from the remaining 2 establishments. Because Ryaji was present, so Uzui Tengen did not act presumptuously regarding the matter of choosing people, however, Uzui Tengen knew that Ryaji would definitely not infiltrate personally. Hearing these words, Tanjiro Kamado was still somewhat uncomprehending, and asked again, Uzui-san, but we are males, are we going to the establishments to work as laborers? Uzui Tengen shook his head, and said, T establishments do not accept men, you all have to disguise yourselves as women in order to infiltrate. As for which 2 people will disguise themselves, that is for you all to discuss yourselves. Anyway, I know that Ryaji will definitely not disguise himself as a woman. After he finished speaking, Uzui Tengen looked towards Ryaji. Ryaji did not make any rebuttals, regarding such things as disguising himself as a woman, Ryaji indeed did not have any interest. And so Ryaji then thought for a moment, and then said, then let Zenitsu and Inashuk Hashibaira take on this mission. Inashuk Hashibaira, who was single-mindedly focused on eating refreshments, after hearing Ryaji's words, all of a sudden became unhappy, and then said, I don't want to disguise myself as a woman. White-haired Aniki, you should go find Tanjiro Kamado. And Zenitsu Agatsuma, who had regained his strength, also immediately sat up, also saying unwillingly, Ryaji-senpai, I also won't do this job. I think that you also look quite delicate, you are suitable for disguising yourself as a girl. Are you sure that you want to give such a good job to me? Tea establishments have a lot of young and beautiful yujo, this is a great opportunity for you to find a second girlfriend, are you sure that you want to give it up? Ryaji then pretended to entice Zenitsu Agatsuma. Hearing these words, Zenitsu Agatsuma also was somewhat moved by what Ryaji had said, and could not help but again look at Uzui Tengen, who possessed 3 wives. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 432, chapter 432. However, upon thinking of Aoi Kenzaki, Zenitsu Agatsuma again felt that there was no need for a second girlfriend, and so he refused, saying. However, upon thinking of Aoi Kenzaki, Zenitsu Agatsuma again felt that there was no need for a second girlfriend, and so he refused, saying, Ryaji-senpai, I do not need a second girlfriend, having Aoi-chan is enough for me. For Zenitsu Agatsuma to be able to say such words, indeed made Ryaji feel a little bit surprised. It seemed that Aoi Kenzaki had really changed Zenitsu Agatsuma a lot, at the very least he would not be so amorous anymore. Clearly, Zenitsu Agatsuma was a person who was content with his lot and found joy in it. Although Zenitsu Agatsuma was unwilling, but in the end, under Ryaji's strong request, he accepted this mission. Inashuk Hashibaira was originally also unwilling, but he was indeed the most suitable to disguise as a woman, because the face under Inashuk Hashabira's boar head mask was a woman's face that possessed a rather cute and beautiful appearance. Therefore, Inashuk Hashabira and Zenitsu Agatsuma were both forced by Ryaji to take on this mission. After that, Uzui Tengen then began to apply makeup to Hattori Kyujo, Zenitsu Agatsuma, and Inashuk Hashabira, and then had them change into the female kimonos prepared by the owner of the house. Apart from Hattori Kyujo, Zenitsu Agatsuma, and Inashuk Hashabira needing to put on makeup and change clothes due to the needs of the mission, Ryaji, Tanjiro, and also Uzui Tengen all took off their core uniforms, and put on relatively ordinary kimonos. It had to be said that Uzui Tengen's makeup skills were really not flattering. Hattori Kyujo, who was clearly a great beauty, under the makeup applied by Uzui Tengen, all of a sudden became a background killer who could make men soften. Therefore, even though Inashuk Hashabira possessed a beautiful woman's face, he also similarly became a puppet doll who could scare someone to death, Zenitsu Agatsuma, that was even more needless to say. However, no one made any mockery. After all, it was for the needs of the infiltration mission. After that, the group then came to the red light district. Uzui Tengen disguised himself as a poor family who was planning to sell off his younger sister, and taking Hattori Kyujo, Zenitsu Agatsuma, and Inashuk Hashabira, then went to the Tokaido House, Ajimoto House, and Kyogoku House, these three most suspicious tea establishments. Tea establishment was also a more refined and elegant disguise and term of address. The actual business that was being done was all aimed at men. And Ryaji and Tanjiro then strolled around the red light district. One was to familiarize themselves with the environment, and two was to see if they could rely on Tanjiro's nose to search out the traces left behind by the demons. After all, the time when the red light district was the most lively was at night. Nighttime was when most people let loose. After strolling around for a good while, Ryaji then asked Tanjiro, "Have you found anything?" Hearing these words, Tanjiro shook his head, and then said, "Not yet, temporarily." Just at this time, a burst of excited discussion came from the crowd. "It's the Koinitsu courtesan, Warren, of the Tokaido House. It looks like a big boss has come to the Tokaido House." For the Koinitsu courtesan to come out and parade through the streets, it shows that she is going to the Tokaido House to meet that big boss. As expected of a courtesan, she is simply too beautiful. If I could ha with her once, I would be willing to live 10 years less. Ryaji and Tanjiro were also attracted by the excited discussion of the crowd. Ryaji immediately said to Tanjiro, "Go over and take a look. And also smell the scent of the courtesan of the Tokaido House." Hearing these words, Tanjiro immediately followed Ryaji to squeeze into the crowd. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 433, chapter 433. It could be seen that a vast and mighty wave of people was slowly walking on the street. On both sides of the street were many residents who. It could be seen that a vast and mighty wave of people was slowly walking on the street. On both sides of the street were many residents who lived in the red light district who were watching. The majority of those watching were men. There were also a small number of women, and even fewer children. The courtesan walked very slowly, but with great rhythm. This was also the rule and etiquette that the courtesan must follow. Ryaji, looking at the slow-moving courtesan, could not help but smile. By the time the courtesan actually walked to the Tokaido House to meet the guest, it was estimated that the guest in the establishment would have long lost interest, right? Anyway, if it were Ryaji, he definitely would not have that interest. Because even if you met the courtesan, you would not be able to immediately cut to the chase. If the courtesan did not take a liking to the guest who had paid for her appearance, she could turn her head and leave, without needing to continue to receive them. Even if she did take a liking to them, if it was the first meeting, they also could not touch the courtesan, they could only look at her from afar, and then they had to continue to win the courtesan's heart. The method of winning the courtesan's heart was also very simple and crude. It was to display your financial power in front of the courtesan, and spend money wantonly. Repeating this cycle over and over again, until you truly obtained the courtesan's heart. Generally, as long as the man's appearance was not too hideous, as long as he could throw money to meet the courtesan 3 times, the matter would be settled, because in reality, there were also very few people who could persistently throw money to meet the courtesan 3 times, so generally the courtesan would prepare chopsticks with the guest's name written on them at the 3rd meeting. At this time it would be hinting to the guest that tonight he could kiss her fragrant lips and spend a pleasant evening together. And this 3rd meeting would also be like a blind date, betrothal, and marriage. Only by achieving this step of marriage could they truly establish a relationship with the courtesan. After that, at every meeting, as long as the money thrown was enough, they could all spend a pleasant evening with her. Because as long as you had money you could establish a relationship with the courtesan. To put it crudely, the courtesan was actually a high-class public daily necessity. Therefore, Ryaji naturally would not have too much of a feeling for courtesans. As a dimensional transmigrator who had transmigrated from modern society, Ryaji had seen too many beauties, and what Ryaji valued even more was emotion, and not this kind of pure monetary and physical transaction. Following the courtesan were also many attendants and bodyguards. At the very front of the courtesan was a man carrying a lantern with the courtesan's fixed crest and name printed on it. Further behind were 2 little girls around 10 years old, holding the courtesan's belongings, specifically to do chores for the courtesan when she paraded through the streets. They were called kamuro. Behind the kamuro was the courtesan herself. Further behind were several bodyguards. Bodyguards were girls who were somewhat older than the kamuro, but had not yet started to receive customers. They were also the girls who were sent to receive the guests on behalf of the courtesan when the courtesan was not free to receive the guests with whom she had already established a relationship. However, the bodyguards could not have relations with the guests. Ryaji simply sized up this koinetsu courtesan, and then asked Tanjiro, "Tanjiro, how is it? Is there anything abnormal?" Hearing these words, Tanjiro shook his head, and answered Ryaji, "Ryaji-senpai, it is the scent of humans, there is nothing abnormal about the people inside." "Are you sure?" Ryaji then confirmed again. "Yes." Tanjiro nodded his head. "Then we will go to other places to take another look." Ryaji did not intend to continue to stay and watch, and saying this, he turned around to prepare to leave. Tanjiro also did not have the mind to look at beauties, and quickly followed Ryaji to leave. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 434, chapter 434. Afterwards, Ryaji and Tanjiro roughly strolled around the triangular area formed by the Tokaido House, Ajimoto House, and Kigoku House. Afterwards, Ryaji and Tanjiro roughly strolled around the triangular area formed by the Tokaido House, Ajimoto House, and Kigoku House. Among them, Tanjiro's sensitive nose did not smell any suspicious odors, so Ryaji and Tanjiro basically did not have any gains. They could only be considered to have familiarized themselves with the environment of the red light district. Ryaji and Tanjiro then gathered with Uzui Tengen at a noodle shop that they had agreed upon, and both sides mutually told each other about the situation on their side. From what they learned from Uzui Tengen, Hattori Kyujo was the most successful. Relying on her own conditions, she had very easily infiltrated the Kigoku house. Inashuk could also be considered to be successful. He had been arranged to be at the Ajimoto house. Zenitsu Agatsuma, however, had expended a great deal of effort before Uzui Tengen was able to arrange for him to be at the Tokaido house. As soon as Zenitsu was mentioned, Uzui Tengen could not help but complain. That blonde brat, not only could he not be sold for a good price, even if he was given away for free, people did not really want him. If it were not for the fact that giving money in reverse would arouse suspicion, I would have sold him off even if I had to pay money. Fortunately, in the end, under my persuasion, people reluctantly took him in. The matter can also be considered to be settled. All that is left is to wait for their news. After he finished speaking, Uzui Tengen took out the money that he had received from selling Hattori Kyujo and also Inashuk, and then handed it to Ryaji, saying, "This money is the selling price that the tea establishments gave to them. One is for Kyujo, one is for Inashuk. That Zenitsu guy was given away for free, so there is none. After the matter is over, you can give it to Kyujo and Inashuk." Ryaji also did not have any objections, and put the 2 stacks of not too thick money that were sealed in envelopes into his chest. This money would be considered to be their hard-earned money for infiltrating the inside. Before long, the 3 bowls of seafood udon noodles that Ryaji, Tanjiro, and Uzui Tengen had ordered had already been brought up by the boss. the boss habitually and very politely said, "Please enjoy, you three." After eating the udon noodles, Uzui Tengen paid the noodle money. The three people quickly left the noodle shop, and then separately kept watch near the three establishments, to see if they could catch any clues of the demons. However, on the first night, Ryaji, Tanjiro, and also Uzui Tengen did not have any gains, and so the three people then returned to the Wisteria family to rest. When the sun set, they continued a new round of keeping watch, but this time, Ryaji planned to bring Tanjiro to go inside the tea establishments to stroll around, to see if they could discover any clues in these three tea establishments that could not be discovered from the outside. Ryaji and Tanjiro first chose the Kyogoku house as the first establishment to deeply investigate. Uzui Tengen did not have this intention. However, Uzui Tengen also did not stop Ryaji and Tanjiro, but only guarded outside the establishment on his own. In reality, Uzui Tengen actually had a relatively suspicious person in his heart, and that was the courtesan of the Kyogoku house, Daki. This was also the reason why Uzui Tengen had been staring at the Kyogoku house all along. As for Zenitsu Agatsuma and Inashuk, who were staying at the Tokaido house and Ajimoto house, they were prepared to be used as extra measures. After all, Uzui Tengen's other two wives had also lost contact at the Tokaido house and Ajimoto house, so it could not be ruled out that those two establishments also had demons. As soon as Ryaji and Tanjiro walked into the Kyogoku house, they were immediately swarmed by groups of 3 or 5 yujo with varying appearances. "Oh my, what a handsome young man. Come, young man, I will accompany you to spend this spring night. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 435, chapter 435. All of a sudden, Ryaji and Tanjiro were grabbed by these courtesans, and their bodies were also constantly rubbing against Ryaji and Tanjiro. All of a sudden, Ryaji and Tanjiro were grabbed by these courtesans, and their bodies were also constantly rubbing against Ryaji and Tanjiro's bodies. Tanjiro clearly had not experienced such a scene before, and could not help but somewhat reject these courtesans who were throwing themselves into his arms. "He is only a servant, you all should not make things difficult for him." Ryaji, seeing that Tanjiro did not like such a scene, then gestured to those courtesans who were throwing themselves into Tanjiro's arms. Hearing these words, those courtesans, after learning Tanjiro's identity, immediately released Tanjiro, and then all flocked to Ryaji's body. Tanjiro also finally breathed a sigh of relief, and then looked at Ryaji, who was surrounded in the middle by the courtesans, and could not help but secretly sigh. Ryaji-senpai is truly unflustered in the face of chaos. His realm is indeed different from mine. Ryaji sized up the courtesans who were surrounding him, and then chose a courtesans who looked to be more experienced, and who understood the situation of the Kyogoku house very well, and then took the initiative to pull her into his arms, and then said to the others, "It's her. You other sisters can have a turn next time, one by one." That courtesans who had been chosen by Ryaji was also very delighted. After all, a handsome guy like Ryaji was rarely seen. To be able to have a good time with a handsome guy like Ryaji, it would not matter even if she did not get any money. The other courtesans, seeing that Ryaji had a clear target, the enthusiasm that they had taken the initiative to show could not help but somewhat decline. There were only a few courtesans who were not willing to give up, who said, "Young master, at first glance you are a dragon among men. One person is probably not enough to satisfy you, right? Why don't you choose me as well?" Ryaji waved his hand, and then said, "Next time. Next time." Ryaji's true purpose was to gather information. He was not here to enjoy himself. If he really wanted to come to enjoy himself, with Ryaji's current physical qualities, 7 or 8 would not be a problem. Seeing that Ryaji did not have this intention, that courtesans did not force the issue, and so she retreated with a smile on her face. After that, Ryaji, Tanjiro, and that courtesans then came to a private room. Ryaji then again ordered several geisha who only sold their skills and not their bodies to come into the room to perform their talents. And he also ordered some refreshments and fruit platters. These were naturally items that had to be consumed. Even if you did not order them, the courtesans would persuade you to consume them. This was the rule of the courtesan's house. It was impossible for you to immediately run to the bed as soon as you came in. Ryaji was also sacrificing himself for the sake of information. allowing this courtesans to rub against him in his arms. "Young master, at first glance you are from out of town, right? I have not seen you come to the Kyogoku house before. This time I will definitely treat you well, and leave you with an unforgettable memory." That courtesans could not help but move close to Ryaji's face and said, exhaling fragrant breath, and with an appearance as if she wanted to take the opportunity to kiss Ryaji. Ryaji all of a sudden used his index finger and middle finger to block that courtesan's face, and then with his other hand, following her waistline, he slid down to her thigh, saying, "Don't be anxious. I will satisfy you later." Ryaji also did not want to appear too repulsed, but rather pretended to be like an old/seasoned veteran, his hand very naturally placed on the courtesan's body. If he showed too much rejection, then it would seem very abnormal. After all, coming to this place was for eating, drinking, and being merry. If Ryaji did not even touch this courtesan's, then it would be very difficult to carry out the next steps of extracting information. Tanjiro was already afraid to continue to look at Ryaji, who was intimately together with the courtesans, although Tanjiro knew that Ryaji was making a sacrifice in order not to arouse suspicion, but Tanjiro could not stand such a torrid scene. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20+ advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40+ advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80+ advanced chapter. 436, chapter 436. The courtesan could also tell from Ryaji's movements on her body that Ryaji was possibly a veteran, so she was also not in a hurry, and then. The courtesan could also tell from Ryaji's movements on her body that Ryaji was possibly a veteran, so she was also not in a hurry, and then turned her face back. "I heard that the Kyogoku house seems to have a courtesan named Hinetsuru, is that right? I heard that she is very beautiful." Ryaji then took this opportunity to ask this most important question. Hearing Ryaji mention the courtesan, that courtesan who was lying in Ryaji's arms had a feeling of being out of favor, and in her heart she also became somewhat unhappy. However, her unhappiness was not anger, but rather fear that Ryaji's eyes would only have the courtesan, and would no longer have her. If Ryaji really had the financial power to play with the courtesan, then he could definitely redeem her from the Kyogoku house several hundred times over. Therefore, the courtesan's little scheme all of a sudden rose up, and then pretending to be wronged, she complained to Ryaji, "Am I not good enough? What's so good about the courtesan?" From the tone of her voice, Ryaji could hear that her tone carried a hint of jealousy and apprehension. After all, she was only a low-status courtesan. "No, you are very good. I am just curious, just tell me about it. I don't mind having more women, I definitely won't neglect you." Ryaji then tightened his arms around the courtesan, and comforted her. Although she knew that this was Ryaji's sweet talk, but women often still fell for this kind of thing, and she could not help but become happy. "You tell me your name, and I will tell you about Hinetsuru's affairs." The courtesan in Ryaji's arms could not help but become cunning. Hearing these words, Ryaji smiled, and then said, "Then you haven't told me your name yet." On the other side, Tanjiro could only drink tea on his own and watch those geisha play instruments and dance. Regarding the situation on Ryaji's side, Tanjiro tried his best to block it out. "My name is Miyazawa Reiko, you must be sure to keep it in your heart for your entire life. You are not allowed to forget it." The courtesan named Miyazawa Reiko then very seriously instructed Ryaji. "My name is Ryaji, can you now tell me about the Hinetsuru courtesan?" Ryaji also told Miyazawa Reiko his name, and then continued to inquire about Hinetsuru's affairs. "Ryaji, Ryaji." Miyazawa Reiko secretly recited Ryaji's name in her heart, and then feigned a sigh to Ryaji, before saying, "A Hinetsuru is indeed our Kyogoku house courtesan, that's right, but a week ago, she somehow suddenly seemed to become seriously ill, and then she was sent to the Karimas." Speaking to this point, Miyazawa Reiko could not help but size up the surroundings of the room, and then moved close to Ryaji's ear and continued to say softly, "At that time, when Hinetsuru's illness broke out, she coughed up a lot of blood. It was especially scary, it felt like she was going to die at any moment. So much time has passed now, perhaps she is already dead. Even if she has not died, this kind of sickly courtesan is no longer as radiant and beautiful as she once was, and moreover, who knows, she might even infect you with the disease. I guarantee to you, my skills are definitely not worse than the courtesan's." After listening to Miyazawa Reiko's words, the expression on Ryaji's face slightly sank, but he did not show too much panic. It was just that Miyazawa Reiko's guarantee was not taken to heart by Ryaji. What made Ryaji feel puzzled was, what kind of place was the Kirimis that Miyazawa Reiko spoke of? Could it be a clinic? Ryaji was clear that although he now knew Hinatsuru's news, it was not yet the time to take action. Therefore, Ryaji did not tell Tanjiro about the matter, to have Tanjiro relay it to Uzui Tengen. Because the matter seemed simple, but there were many oddities existing within it. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 437, Chapter 437. Is that so? Then it should still be another courtesan, right? Ryaji composed himself, and then took the opportunity to continue to inquire. Is that so? Then it should still be another courtesan, right? Ryaji composed himself, and then took the opportunity to continue to inquire. Miyazawa Reiko, seeing that Ryaji was so interested in the courtesan, in her heart felt both happy and worried. Happy was because Ryaji possibly possessed considerable financial power, otherwise he would not have been constantly talking about the courtesan. Worried was because Ryaji's mind was not completely on her, so it made her somewhat worried. However, Miyazawa Reiko, as a courtesan who had been in the profession for many years, in her heart still acted according to the principle of serving the guests and pleasing the guests, and so she still very respectfully said to Ryaji, courtesans naturally exist, because of Hinatsuru's matter. Now our Kigoku house only has this last facade of the Daki courtesan left. Speaking to this point, Miyazawa Reiko again moved close to Ryaji's ear and continued to say softly, however, Daki is a very hypocritical person, and also has a big ego. She often suppresses and bullies the other courtesan in the establishment. There are a few younger girls who, because they were bullied by her, committed suicide in their rooms the next day. After she finished speaking, Miyazawa Reiko gave Ryaji a look that said not to associate with her, and then said, "Young master, you are so elegant and graceful, it is really not worth it to associate with this kind of woman." Hearing Miyazawa Reiko's words, Ryaji, on the other hand, was not frightened by Miyazawa Reiko. After all, there were so many women in the tea establishments of the courtesan houses, so naturally there would be no lack of backstabbing and infighting. However, Ryaji also did not intend to come into contact with Daki, because Ryaji did not have that much money to throw at a courtesan. And just as Ryaji still wanted to continue to inquire about this Daki's affairs, Tanjiro suddenly stood up, intending to rush out of the door. Ryaji, seeing this, knew that Tanjiro had definitely discovered something. However, Ryaji instead grabbed Tanjiro, and then covered Tanjiro's mouth and said to him, "Do not act rashly." The reason why Ryaji covered his mouth, was precisely because he was afraid that Tanjiro, in his excitement, would say something, and then alarm the other party. Tanjiro was struggling all along, his whole body exuding killing intent. This made Ryaji somewhat puzzled. What exactly had happened, to make Tanjiro feel killing intent? Tanjiro, restrain your killing intent, it will make the other party notice. Now is not the time to be exposed. Ryaji immediately scolded in a low voice. At this time, Ryaji was already able to guess why Tanjiro had such a reaction. What could make Tanjiro have such a reaction, could only be Muzan Kibutsuji. As soon as Ryaji said these words, Tanjiro's killing intent slowly suppressed itself. However, Ryaji was still not reassured, and so he immediately said to Tanjiro again, "Hide your aura." Miyazawa Reiko and also those geisha who were performing their talents all of a sudden froze. The music also came to an abrupt stop. After that, the flattering voice of a woman outside could be heard, "Boss, you've come again, are you here to see the Daki courtesan again?" Ryaji did not dare to release his perception, because although this would allow him to sense the other party, as long as the other party was not an ordinary person, it would also be very easy to expose himself. Ryaji, through the pause in footsteps, knew that the person outside had stopped outside the room. "Madam, it's this room. Go and call Daki here. I will wait for her here." The sound of a man speaking rang out. "Boss, there are still guests in this room. Let's go to the room that you usually use." From the madam's words, it seemed that she did not intend to let the man enter Ryaji's room. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 438, Chapter 438. The man's voice made Ryaji very certain that the person outside was possibly Muzan Kibutsuji disguised as a human. Clearly he should still be. The man's voice made Ryaji very certain that the person outside was possibly Muzan Kibutsuji disguised as a human. Clearly he should still be using that identity and image from last time. Is that so? But I see that the room is very quiet. How could there be anyone? The man's voice rang out again, and Ryaji saw a black shadow standing outside the door, intending to push the door open and enter. The madam naturally stopped the man's actions. She was the most clear about whether there were guests in the room or not, although the room was indeed abnormally quiet, but this was not a reason to push the door open casually. Because in this line of work, disturbing the guests was a great taboo. Hide behind the door. Ryaji immediately said in a low voice to Tanjiro. Tanjiro also held his breath, and then hid behind the door. And Ryaji, however, did not hide behind the door together with Tanjiro, but rather turned around and pounced on Miyazawa Reiko, and then with a monkey scooping the moon, he scooped between Miyazawa Reiko's legs. Miyazawa Reiko then cried out shyly. After that, Ryaji bit Miyazawa Reiko's earlobe. Miyazawa Reiko cried out even louder, and also with panting sounds. That sound was very suggestive. The quiet room, suddenly emitting such a commotion, the madam immediately knew what was happening in the room, and so facing the man who wanted to enter this room with a sly smile, she said, "Boss, the guests in that room are doing their thing. We should not disturb them." The man hesitated slightly, before taking back his hand that was placed on the door, giving up on his intention to enter the room, and then under the madam's lead, walked away. Seeing the sound of footsteps receding, Ryaji then stopped stimulating Miyazawa Reiko. However, Miyazawa Reiko had already been conquered by Ryaji's offensive, with an expression that was full of lingering desire, her face extremely flushed. What Ryaji had done just now, was precisely to let the madam know that there were guests in the room, and then have her stop the man from pushing the door open. Ryaji's sudden actions had stunned those geisha. They were still here performing their skills. And you all have already started doing it. At this time, they did not know whether they should leave, or continue to stay and perform their talents for the guests. Ryaji-kun, you are so amazing. Miyazawa Reiko praised Ryaji. After she finished speaking, Miyazawa Reiko then turned around and pinned Ryaji down, and then sat on Ryaji's waist, with an intention of reversing the roles, and then leaning down, she prepared to kiss Ryaji. Reiko, wait, wait. Ryaji immediately used his hand to cover Miyazawa Reiko's mouth, and then pleaded for mercy. Ryaji's actions just now, were only to force the man outside the door to leave. He did not really intend to have relations with Miyazawa Reiko. Miyazawa Reiko, seeing that Ryaji would not let her kiss him, then stuck out her tongue to lick Ryaji's palm. This lick caused Ryaji's goosebumps to all rise up. Ryaji immediately pulled his hand away, and then turned around and pressed Miyazawa Reiko onto the ground, saying to her, "You must endure for a moment, I have something to tell my servant. Then you must be quick." Miyazawa Reiko had no choice but to restrain the desire in her heart, and then complained to Ryaji. Ryaji then released Miyazawa Reiko, and then stood up and came to Tanjiro's side. At this time, Tanjiro's expression was somewhat dazed. Ryaji then called out to him, "Tanjiro. It is Muzan Kibutsuji's aura, right?" Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 439, Chapter 439. Hearing these words, Tanjiro nodded his head, and then somewhat resentfully asked Ryaji, "Ryaji-senpai, why did you let Muzan Kibutsuji go?" Hearing these words, Tanjiro nodded his head, and then somewhat resentfully asked Ryaji, "Ryaji-senpai, why did you let Muzan Kibutsuji go?" Ryaji turned his head and looked at the geisha in the room, and then said to them, "You all can leave first." Hearing these words, these geisha did not ask any more questions, and quickly stood up, picked up the musical instruments that they used for playing, and left the room. Ryaji then said to Miyazawa Reiko, "Reiko, you can go wait for me outside first. After I finish giving instructions, I will go do the real thing." Miyazawa Reiko knew that Ryaji and Tanjiro had private words to say, and so she tidied up her clothes, and then stood up and walked out of the room, waiting outside the room for Ryaji's subsequent instructions. Ryaji returned to his previous position, and then gestured for Tanjiro to sit across from him. Tanjiro knew that talking while standing by the door would be easy to be overheard, and so he sat down across from Ryaji. I can understand your feelings, but now is not the time to stir up trouble. Even if we had rushed out just now, could you guarantee that you would have been able to kill him? Ryaji then said to Tanjiro in a very soft voice, his volume not being loud. Ryaji knew that he definitely could not kill Muzan Kibutsuji right now, so Ryaji did not rashly expose himself in front of Muzan Kibutsuji. Tanjiro knew that what Ryaji said was not wrong. If Muzan Kibutsuji was so easy to kill, then it would not be Tanjiro's turn to take action at all. Muzan Kibutsuji has appeared at the Kyogoku house, in the Yoshiwara red light district. With Muzan Kibutsuji's nature, this is definitely not a place to settle down. This shows that there really are other demons lurking here, and this demon is possibly in upper rank. I will stay here to continue to gather information. You go out and meet up with Uzui Tengen, and wait for him at the establishment, to see if you can catch Muzan Kibutsuji's foxtail. Ryaji said a lot to Tanjiro, and then he instructed Tanjiro. It was just that Ryaji did not mention the matter regarding Hinetsuru, because Ryaji was afraid that Uzui Tengen would rashly alarm the other party because of Hinetsuru. Tanjiro also did not have any objections to this. At this time Tanjiro wished that all the Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps were in the red light district, so that they could immediately launch an encirclement and suppression against Muzan Kibutsuji. And so, Tanjiro left the room with a grave expression, and then carefully smelled the door and also the floor. He indeed smelled the faint scent on Muzan Kibutsuji's body. And at this time, Muzan Kibutsuji's aura seemed to have hidden itself because it had sensed Tanjiro's killing intent just now. At this time Tanjiro had no way to judge Muzan Kibutsuji's location through his aura. Scent and aura were not the same. Even if Muzan Kibutsuji could hide his own aura, he could definitely not hide the scent on his body. Because scent was something that the body emitted, it could not be hidden, and ordinary people might not be sensitive to scent, but for Tanjiro, no scent could escape his nose. However, scent had a characteristic, and that was volatility, especially in a place as complex as a Yujo house. Scent was more easily covered up, and it was also very easy to evaporate away. And the last time Tanjiro had found Muzan Kibutsuji in Asakusa, Tokyo, was through his aura. At that time Muzan Kibutsuji had not hidden his aura, and so he was caught in the act by Tanjiro, whose nose was sensitive. Because of the disappearance of the aura, Tanjiro also could not use this thin scent to confirm where Muzan Kibutsuji had gone. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 440, Chapter 440. Miyazawa Reiko, looking at Tanjiro's strange behavior, her eyes also became somewhat odd, and at the same time, she did not dare to approach. Miyazawa Reiko, looking at Tanjiro's strange behavior, her eyes also became somewhat odd, and at the same time, she did not dare to approach Tanjiro. Because in Miyazawa Reiko's opinion, a man like Tanjiro who did not touch women was a freak, and his sudden desire to rush out of the room just now felt like a mental illness had broken out. Tanjiro also did not pay attention to Miyazawa Reiko outside the room. After he finished smelling the scent on the door, he left without turning his head back. According to the plan, Tanjiro left the Kyogoku house and found Uzui Tengen, and then told him about the situation of encountering Muzan Kibutsuji at the Kyogoku house. This made Uzui Tengen both excited and annoyed. He had clearly been staring outside, but he had not even noticed Muzan Kibutsuji entering the Kyogoku house. Where is Ryaji? Uzui Tengen, seeing that Ryaji had not come out, then asked. Uzui-san, Ryaji-senpai, he plans to investigate further. He told me to stay outside with you to keep watch on Muzan Kibutsuji's movements. Tanjiro answered. After learning about this situation, Uzui Tengen did not ask any more questions, but rather concentrated his mind even more on staring at the surrounding situation. On the other side, not long after Tanjiro left, Ryaji also left the room, and then said to Miyazawa Reiko, "Let's go. We will go do the real thing." And so, Miyazawa Reiko then hooked her arm around Ryaji's, and then brought Ryaji to the room that was specifically for doing that thing. After entering the room, Miyazawa Reiko could not restrain herself. Ryaji took the opportunity to pinch the back of her neck, and then Miyazawa Reiko fainted in Ryaji's arms. Ryaji, looking at the woman in his arms, could not help but shake his head and recite, "Sin, sin." After that, Ryaji then carried Miyazawa Reiko to the bed, and then covered her with the quilt, and finally, he took out an envelope containing money, and stuffed it into Miyazawa Reiko's arms. This was also Ryaji's thanks to her for giving him information. After that, Ryaji then climbed out of the window onto the roof, and then carefully and cautiously searched little by little along the roof, and finally, he touched the roof of the room where Muzan Kibutsuji was located. At this time, Muzan Kibutsuji's room was quite lively. There were many geisha performing their talents for Muzan Kibutsuji, and he was also surrounded by many superior courtesan. It could be said that he had one on each side, giving off the feeling of an emperor. Ryaji hid his aura, and lurked on the roof for a long time. Throughout the entire process, Muzan Kibutsuji behaved like a normal human being, and did not reveal the side of him that ate people. Ryaji could not help but mutter to himself in his heart, could it be that Muzan Kibutsuji had really come to enjoy life? He did not know how long he had waited. The sound of music stopped. Ryaji then heard the sound of many people leaving. Before long, Ryaji saw a vast and mighty group of people coming on the corridor on the roof. All of a sudden, Ryaji knew why those people in the room just now had left. It seemed that the main character had come. Muzan Kibutsuji was waiting for the Daki courtesan of the Kyogoku house. It also took a lot of time for this Daki to come to Muzan Kibutsuji's room. Lord, long time no see, Daki, I miss you very much. As soon as Daki entered the room, she gave Muzan Kibutsuji a big gift. Clearly she respected Muzan Kibutsuji very much. Those accompanying Kamuro and Shinzo also followed Daki to give a big gift. After they finished giving the gift, Daki then instructed the accompanying Kamuro and guard, "You all can leave. Do not disturb the rendezvous between me and the Lord." And so, these Kamuro and guard then all left the room, but they did not wait outside the room, but rather moved away from this room. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 441, chapter 441. After about a good while, Daki immediately knelt down to Muzan Kibutsuji, and then somewhat nervously said, "Lord, why have you come?" Come. After about a good while, Daki immediately knelt down to Muzan Kibutsuji, and then somewhat nervously said, "Lord, why have you come?" Come over here. Muzan Kibutsuji patted his thigh and said. Daki did not dare to be negligent. She immediately crawled in front of Muzan Kibutsuji, and then sat on Muzan Kibutsuji's thigh. Compared to her previous noble and proper appearance, it was simply like two different people. As soon as Daki sat down, Muzan Kibutsuji kissed Daki. Daki also did not dare to resist. She could only gently hook Muzan Kibutsuji's neck. And Ryaji on the roof naturally did not know about these things happening in the room. The only movement that Ryaji could know about was that tiny sound of talking. This was difficult to hear, and he had to listen very carefully in order to distinguish what was being said. After the talking stopped, after a while, the sound of delicate panting came. This sound made Ryaji even more convinced that Muzan Kibutsuji had come to the red light district to enjoy the beauty of women. This could not help but give Ryaji the idea of taking this opportunity to catch Muzan Kibutsuji off guard, and give Muzan Kibutsuji a big scare while he was enjoying pleasure. However, after thinking carefully, Ryaji still did not intend to do this. With Muzan Kibutsuji's mental fortitude, it was clear that he would not be scared. Doing this would only expose himself. However, Ryaji did not want to expose himself. First, exposing himself would make Muzan Kibutsuji completely vigilant, and it was estimated that it would be much more difficult to make Muzan Kibutsuji show his face again. Because Ryaji did not have the certainty of killing Muzan Kibutsuji, so going to come into contact with Muzan Kibutsuji now would be nothing more than two results. He would not be a match for Muzan Kibutsuji, and then he would be beaten and run away, or Muzan Kibutsuji would discover him but also be unable to do anything to him, and then choose to run away, not entangling with him. If the 9 Hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps were all in the red light district at this time, then he would still be able to take the initiative to attack first, stall Muzan Kibutsuji, and then coordinate with the other Hashira to surround Muzan Kibutsuji, and fighting a war of attrition would also be able to exhaust this guy to death. However, in the real situation, the only people with strength in the red light district were Ryaji and Uzui Tengen. Relying on himself and Uzui Tengen alone was clearly not enough. Most importantly, Ryaji, because of the need to gather information, did not carry his demon-slaying sword or Nichiren blade with him, so he simply did not have the conditions to duel with Muzan Kibutsuji right now. He did not know how long had passed. The sound of delicate panting also stopped. Ryaji's attention also concentrated accordingly. After that, Ryaji then heard the sound of the door being pushed open, and then Daki's voice rang out, "Lord, take care." Ryaji, who was lurking on the roof, all of a sudden felt somewhat at a loss. Muzan Kibutsuji had left after doing it with the courtesan. Could it be that Muzan Kibutsuji had really come to seek pleasure? But Ryaji's intuition told him that things were definitely not that simple. This Daki had a big problem. A woman who could make Muzan Kibutsuji personally come to meet her, was definitely not as simple as a mere courtesan. Muzan Kibutsuji must have used other means to communicate with Daki. Could it be that after establishing a connection through the flesh, it was possible to carry out a soul exchange? Having kept watch for so long and still not having gained anything, this made Ryaji somewhat disappointed. Helplessly, Ryaji had no choice but to withdraw and slip away, and then immediately met up with Tanjiro and Uzui Tengen, who were keeping watch outside the Kyogoku house. "Muzan Kibutsuji, where is he? What is the situation?" Uzui Tengen, as soon as he saw Ryaji, then asked. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 442, chapter 442. Ryaji shook his head, and said, "Muzan Kibutsuji may be coming out soon. Tanjiro, pay more attention." Hearing Ryaji's words, Tanjiro more s. Ryaji shook his head, and said, "Muzan Kibutsuji may be coming out soon. Tanjiro, pay more attention." Hearing Ryaji's words, Tanjiro more seriously analyzed the scent that was drifting in the surrounding air. But as time passed, Tanjiro still did not discover Muzan Kibutsuji's scent. And Ryaji, on the other hand, increasingly felt that things were not right, and so he immediately said, "Uzui Tengen, do you know about the Kurimis?" Hearing Ryaji ask about this, Uzui Tengen's expression was somewhat puzzled, but he still nodded, and said, "I know. Why are you asking about this?" "Muzan Kibutsuji has already left the Kyogoku house. Do not keep watch anymore. Hinetsuru is at the Kurimis. We must go over there and take a look," Ryaji immediately said. Hearing these words, the expression on Uzui Tengen's face immediately became ugly. "Tanjiro, you stay here and continue to pay attention to Muzan Kibutsuji, do not act rashly. Ryaji and I will go to the Kurimis for a trip," Uzui Tengen immediately instructed Tanjiro. Tanjiro also did not have any objections to this, and so he nodded his head. "Follow me." Uzui Tengen immediately gestured to Ryaji, and then the two people transformed into two black shadows, quickly flashing on the buildings. On the way to the Kurimis, Ryaji learned from Uzui Tengen what kind of place the Kurimis was. The Kurimis were very low-end Yujo houses. Yujo who were unable to attract customers or who were suffering from illnesses would be sent to this place. And Ryaji also told Uzui Tengen about Hinetsuru's situation in simple terms. After listening to Ryaji's account, things were indeed according to what Uzui Tengen and Hinetsuru had agreed upon. It was just why Hinetsuru had not used the Kasugai crow to report her news to him. Before long, Ryaji and Uzui Tengen came to the Kurimis. As soon as they arrived at this place, they could hear dense sounds of delicate panting, and also the sounds of men fighting. The entire place looked like a concentration camp. Some rooms were brightly lit, some were pitch black. Uzui Tengen quickly found the person in charge here, and then named Hinetsuru by name, saying that he wanted to find her, and he also stuffed a sum of money to that person in charge. That person in charge, after receiving the money, immediately nimbly led Uzui Tengen to find the person. It was just that he could not help but recite the words. "So it's you young people who like to play with outdated and eliminated products. With this much money, it's enough for you to book her for the entire night. It's just I'm reminding you in advance, if you get sick, do not blame people." Uzui Tengen strongly endured the impulse to beat up that person in charge. If it were not for the fact that he had to lead the way to find Hinetsuru, Uzui Tengen would have punched him a long time ago. "Uzui Tengen, I feel that things may be suspicious." Ryaji then reminded him. "I can't care about so much now. Saving people is the most important thing." Uzui Tengen was already unable to attend to so much. Listening to the person in charge's tone, his wife had clearly suffered a lot of grievances here. Hearing these words, Ryaji could only take things one step at a time. Before long, under the lead of the person in charge, Ryaji and Uzui Tengen came to the outside of a room. The person in charge pointed at the door and said, "The one in this room is the one called Hinatsuru." Before the person in charge could finish speaking, Uzui Tengen had already broken down the door and entered. Ryaji also immediately followed in. As soon as he entered the room, Ryaji saw Uzui Tengen carrying a woman who was already on the verge of death in his arms. Tier $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 443, Chapter 443. What an impatient fellow. The person in charge, seeing that Uzui Tengen had directly broken down the door and entered, immediately cursed. What an impatient fellow. The person in charge, seeing that Uzui Tengen had directly broken down the door and entered, immediately cursed and grumbled as he turned around and walked away. If it were not for the fact that the money Uzui Tengen had given him at the beginning was enough, the person in charge would definitely have made Uzui Tengen pay compensation for the damaged door. And in the room, a woman's sash, as if it had come to life, was crawling like a snake, and it also stood up, just like a snake raising its head when facing an enemy. Seeing this strange sash, Ryaji also became vigilant. If he had a weapon on him right now, Ryaji would have already drawn his sword and taken action. Things were indeed not that simple. Hinatsuru seemed to be bait. Seeing this strange sash, Uzui Tengen, holding the dying Hinatsuru, immediately flashed to Ryaji's side. That sash did not have the intention to attack, but rather grew a mouth and a pair of eyes. The disappearance of these three little mice has indeed led you Demon Slayer core people over here. You are really some annoying fellows. That handsome little guy named Ryaji, did you like the sound of my delicate panting? As long as you join us, and follow the Lord, as long as you need it, you can also enjoy my body. That sash first loathed and despised the Demon Slayer core, and then coquettishly tried to win Ryaji over. The reason why the sash knew about Ryaji lurking on the roof and eavesdropping was because the sash was an incarnation of Daki. When Ryaji was lurking on the roof, Muzan Kibutsuji had already transformed his own incarnation into a mosquito, and discovered Ryaji hiding on the roof. Muzan Kibutsuji, knowing that he had been discovered, did not panic in the slightest, and adopted the method of, if the enemy does not move, I do not move, to respond. This was also why Muzan Kibutsuji, after seeing Daki, only sought pleasure with her, and did not conduct any conversation. Because he knew that Ryaji was eavesdropping, Muzan Kibutsuji had no choice but to choose the form of cell communication to tell Daki all the things that he wanted to convey, and also told Daki the subsequent methods of response. This also explained why Tanjiro was unable to discover Muzan Kibutsuji outside the Kyogoku house, because Muzan Kibutsuji had already known that he might be being targeted, so he changed his image in order to escape, and at the same time used a great deal of incense to cover up the scent on his body. Hearing the words that the sash said later, Ryaji's face sank, and then he also felt very annoyed in his heart. His lurking had actually been discovered by the other party, but he was completely unaware. In reality, the reason why Ryaji had not discovered that he had been discovered was because Ryaji had not only hidden his aura, but had also withdrawn his perception. If he did not withdraw his perception, with Muzan Kibutsuji's keen perception, he would definitely have been able to sense Ryaji's perception as well. If he really had to find a reason, then it was that the killing intent that Tanjiro had revealed at that time had made Muzan Kibutsuji become wary and vigilant, so when he met Daki, Muzan Kibutsuji had deployed many incarnations transformed into mosquitoes around and outside his room to monitor the situation outside the room. If Tanjiro had not made Muzan Kibutsuji suspicious, it was uncertain whether Ryaji would have been discovered or not. Therefore, Muzan Kibutsuji had only used his own advantages and abilities to discover Ryaji. Assuming that he had also used the stealth of the demon god transformation to lurk, then Muzan Kibutsuji would really have been unable to discover Ryaji. Tier $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 444, Chapter 444. Hearing the words that Daki's sash incarnation said, Uzui Tengen also looked towards Ryaji with a nervous expression. Uzui Tengen's nervous. Hearing the words that Daki's sash incarnation said, Uzui Tengen also looked towards Ryaji with a nervous expression. Uzui Tengen's nervousness was more from Ryaji, because the Sasha's words just now had the meaning of trying to win Ryaji over. If Ryaji agreed, then the situation would be troublesome. Secondly, the Sash incarnation's words were misleading, making Uzui Tengen feel that Ryaji seemed to have already come into contact with Muzan Kibutsuji in the Kyogoku house, and Ryaji had deliberately led him here. I have never lacked women. Even if I take a liking to you, I don't need to join you, I can still get you. Ryaji was not bewitched by Daki's words, but rather said very domineeringly. With the superdimensional system in hand, was he still afraid of not having women? Even if that woman was a demon, as long as Ryaji was willing, then she would have to obediently kneel in front of him, and serve him. Hearing Ryaji's arrogant words, Daki's Sash incarnation immediately laughed loudly at Ryaji. This laughter was more of a mockery of Ryaji. Secondly, she was really amused by Ryaji's words. A human, actually fantasizing about forcing himself on a demon, this was the funniest joke that Daki had ever heard. Handsome little guy, your tastes are really not small. I suddenly like you more and more. Daki continued to say coquettishly. Enough nonsense. You showing yourself is not just as simple as trying to win me over, right? Where are the other two girls named Makio and Suma? You better not tell me that you ate them. Ryaji's entire person immediately turned cold, and then he said to Daki's incarnation with an unkind tone. Uzui Tengen, seeing Ryaji's attitude, his nervous mood also eased up, and then he followed Ryaji and echoed, that's right. Where are the other two wives? Quickly hand them over to me. He. Daki's Sash incarnation chuckled a few times, and then said, don't be anxious. Originally, I was planning to directly kill or eat them, but the Lord said that this is our bargaining chip for negotiating with handsome little Ryaji, so those two little mice are temporarily very safe. I know that you want to save them, but not now. Wait for my news outside the Kyogoku house. In the next few days, I will give you a chance to save people. He. Daki's Sash incarnation, in the end, with a malicious laughter, slipped out of the room. Ryaji did not stop Daki's Sash incarnation from leaving, because this was only an incarnation for delivering a message. Even if Ryaji destroyed it, it would not cause any impact on Daki. Uzui Tengen looked towards Ryaji, whose expression was somewhat gloomy, and then asked, what exactly happened in the Kyogoku house? Why would the demon try to win you over? Did you meet Muzan Kibutsuji? Call Kyujo, Zenitsu, and also Inashuk back. We have been exposed. We have to replan things. Ryaji did not answer Uzui Tengen, but rather instructed Uzui Tengen. Saying this, Ryaji then walked to Uzui Tengen's side, and then used the wood breathing to regulate Hinatsuru's body. The reason why Hinatsu had suddenly become seriously ill, was actually because she had eaten a specially made pill. This pill could make the body enter a weakened state. When the medicinal effect took effect, it would cause the person taking the medicine to show symptoms of vomiting blood or coughing up blood, making people mistakenly think that they were suffering from a serious illness. And Uzui Tengen had already given Hinatsu the antidote at the first opportunity. Now as long as she recuperated for a period of time, she would be able to completely recover. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20+ Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40+ Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80+ Advanced Chapter. 445, Chapter 445. And Ryaji using the wood breathing was not to accelerate Hinatsuru's recovery, but rather to reactivate the activity of Hinatsuru's body cell. And Ryaji using the wood breathing was not to accelerate Hinatsuru's recovery, but rather to reactivate the activity of Hinatsuru's body cells, to make her feel a little better. Seeing Uzui Tengen staring blankly at him, Ryaji helplessly sighed, and then said, rest assured, I will not collude with the demons. Although I do not know how I was discovered by Muzan Kibutsuji, but the current situation is like this, we have been exposed. They have clearly made preparations to respond, we must also rediscuss the countermeasures. The situation is not as bad as you imagine, at the very least your other two wives are temporarily safe. Ryaji's words finally made Uzui Tengen understand, and so he nodded his head to Ryaji. After that, Ryaji and Uzui Tengen then went back to find Tanjiro. Tanjiro, seeing that Ryaji and Uzui Tengen had returned with a woman, knew that Ryaji had successfully rescued Hinatsu, and his heart could not help but feel happy. Tanjiro, let's go. There is no need to keep watch anymore, Muzan Kibutsuji has long since discovered us. Ryaji did not have any nonsense, and directly explained the situation to Tanjiro. Ryaji-senpai, what is going on? Tanjiro, hearing Ryaji's words, in his heart also somewhat uncomprehendingly asked. The specific situation can be said after we get back. Ryaji was also not in a hurry to explain to Tanjiro. It was normal for Tanjiro not to know what was going on. If it were not for Daki's sash incarnation clarifying the situation to Ryaji just now, Ryaji would still not know that he had been exposed. After that, Ryaji, Tanjiro, and also Uzui Tengen all returned to the Wisteria family where they were staying. Uzui Tengen also brought Hinetsura back, and then he and Ryaji and Tanjiro gathered in the same room. The atmosphere was quite oppressive and heavy. Before returning, the few people had already instructed the Kashigi Crow to notify Hattori Kyujo, Zenitsu Agatsuma, and Inashuk. Now they were just waiting for the three of them to return. And before Hattori Kyujo, Zenitsu Agatsuma, and Inashuk returned, Hinetsura roughly spoke about the things that she had encountered and the situation. Ryaji, Tanjiro, and also Uzui Tengen then learned that the Daki of the Kigoku house was the upper rank 6 demon of the 12 Kazuki. At the same time, they also learned the reason why Hinetsuru had not contacted Uzui Tengen again after being transferred to the Kurimis. It was because Hinetsuru, when she was at the Kurimis, was being monitored by Daki's sash incarnation, causing Hinetsuru to simply be unable to contact Uzui Tengen. After that, Ryaji then told Tanjiro and Uzui Tengen about the rough situation on his side. After listening to Ryaji's account, Tanjiro also became somewhat annoyed, and then blamed himself, saying, "It's all my fault. It must have been that my killing intent was noticed by him at that time." Tanjiro, you do not need to blame yourself. The one who was truly exposed in front of the enemy was me. I can only blame myself for underestimating Muzan Kibutsuji's skills too much. I was completely unaware that I had been exposed. Ryaji also said, somewhat annoyed at this time. Ryaji, is Daki's word trustworthy? Have you not thought that Makio and Suma have already been tragically killed? Uzui Tengen then asked his own concerns. Hinetsuru, who was on the side, hearing Uzui Tengen's words, her originally ugly face became even uglier. Relying only on Daki's one-sided statement, Uzui Tengen could not be certain whether Makio and Suma had already been killed. Before coming, Uzui Tengen had already thought about the situation where his wives might have all been killed. It was just that Uzui Tengen still held onto a fluke in his heart. After all, he wanted to see them alive, or see their corpses if they were dead. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 446, chapter 446. I am saying just in case, what if Makio and Suma had actually been killed a long time ago, but Muzan Kibutsuji, in order to plot and deceive. I am saying just in case, what if Makio and Suma had actually been killed a long time ago, but Muzan Kibutsuji, in order to plot and deceive us, deliberately said that they were still alive. Uzui Tengen always emphasized just in case. In reality, it was because he had a fluke in his heart. His subconscious was still willing to believe that Makio and Suma were still alive. Ryaji looked at Uzui Tengen, and then said, "This is what they need to prove. If they cannot prove that Makio and Suma are still alive, then it is clear that they will not be able to lure me and Tanjiro into their trap. In reality, I can roughly guess their plan. Daki must have received instructions from Muzan Kibutsuji, planning to use Makio and Suma to lure me and Tanjiro into a place that they have ambushed well, and then kill us. So when the time comes, apart from me and Tanjiro being able to go, you all will not be able to follow. Since it is Muzan Kibutsuji's scheme, then I must transmit the news back to headquarters, and call for headquarters to send more manpower over." Uzui Tengen immediately had the intention to transmit a message by Kashigi Crow. After all, this was a once-in-a-lifetime good opportunity to subjugate Muzan Kibutsuji. "Don't be anxious." Ryaji immediately stopped Uzui Tengen, and then said, "I feel that Muzan Kibutsuji's participation in this operation, judging from Muzan Kibutsuji's cunningness, he must be able to think of this point. We will use the point of saving people to encircle and suppress them, so at this time he must have already returned to his hiding place." And just at this time, Hattori Kyujo was the first to rush back, At this time she was still wearing the clothes of a yujo. The exquisite makeup on her face was simply worlds apart compared to the time when Uzui Tengen had applied it. Ryaji Teiko, Uzui-sama, what happened? Why has the infiltration mission been cancelled again? I only just had a little bit of a clue. As soon as Hattori Kyujo entered the room, she asked with puzzlement. Kyujo, we have been exposed. There is no need to continue to infiltrate. At the same time, the other party has already shown their cards. The Daki of the Kyogoku house is the upper rank 6 of the 12 Kazuki. At the same time, we also encountered Muzan Kibutsuji. It was also because of Muzan Kibutsuji that we were exposed. Ryaji simply explained the situation to Hattori Kyujo. Hearing Muzan Kibutsuji, Hattori Kyujo immediately became excited, and then said, Ryaji Teiko, did you fight with Muzan Kibutsuji? Ryaji shook his head, and said, no. For things to have evolved into such a situation, it was more due to Ryaji's inducement. If Ryaji had not been greedy at that time, perhaps he would not have exposed himself. It was because Ryaji at that time had wanted to know Muzan Kibutsuji's purpose for coming to the red light district too much, that it led to the final exposure. If Ryaji and Tanjiro had kept watch outside the establishment together at that time, it was estimated that they really would have been able to keep watch until Muzan Kibutsuji came out. However, the things that had already happened could not be reversed. In reality, even if Ryaji had the time reversal prop now, it would also be unable to change anything. Ryaji himself could not return to that point in time at that time. The time reversal prop could only reverse from Ryaji's current time, and also had a specific range. People outside the range would not be affected. The most important thing was that Ryaji simply did not have this prop available right now. Hattori Kyujo, hearing that Ryaji, Tanjiro, and also Uzui Tengen had not fought with Muzan Kibutsuji, in her heart could not help but feel somewhat disappointed. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 447, Chapter 447. The door was pushed open again. Inashuk and Zenitsu Agatsuma had also successfully escaped and returned. As soon as the two people returned, the door was pushed open again. Inashuk and Zenitsu Agatsuma had also successfully escaped and returned. As soon as the two people returned, they also asked the same question as Hattori Kyujo. Ryaji also explained the situation to the two people again. After listening to Ryaji's explanation, Zenitsu Agatsuma and Inashuk also understood the current situation. Ryaji-senpai, even you, who are so powerful, can be discovered by Muzan Kibutsuji, that is too weak, right? Zenitsu Agatsuma seized this rare opportunity, and stepped on Ryaji. Ryaji did not feel any anger about this, and also did not mind in the slightest. After all, the facts were like this. Ryaji also did not do any cover-up. I also discovered the aura of a demon over there. It's a pity that I still let it run away. Inashuk said with some discouragement. At this time, Hattori Kyujo then asked Ryaji, then since that is the case, what should we do next? Should we go find that Daki's lair to take a look? I have gathered information about that Daki's residence. It is in the north courtyard of the Kyogoku house, in a mansion where the sun does not shine. It's useless. With the other party having already shown their cards, it is clear that they will no longer stay in that place. If we go over there now, we will definitely find nothing. Even if Daki believes that the most dangerous place is the safest place, she still has hostages in her hands. We also have no way to deal with her. Ryaji explained the situation in detail again. Speaking to this point, Ryaji looked towards Uzui Tengen, and then continued, unless Uzui Tengen gives up on Makio and Suma, that way we can carry out a forced kill on Daki, but that is unrealistic. We are people with feelings, we are not demons who can abandon everything. Ryaji's words were only just saying it. He did not really want to persuade Uzui Tengen to give up his other two wives. The status of Uzui Tengen's wives was like Nezuko's position in Ryaji's heart. They were all extremely important. Uzui Tengen did not speak, his expression extremely solemn. Clearly he was extremely worried about Makio and Suma. This time, Muzan Kibutsuji is clearly taking advantage of this opportunity to come for Ryaji and Tanjiro. So Ryaji and Tanjiro's primary task, without a doubt, is to save people, and our task is how to most quickly support Ryaji and Tanjiro, and coordinate with Ryaji and Tanjiro to counterattack the enemy. Uzui Tengen then spoke out the core key points of the matter at this time. Uzui-san is right. When the time comes to rescue the hostages, definitely only Ryaji-senpai and I can go, and you all will definitely be unable to follow. And we do not know where they will set the location, so how to report the location is the problem that we must face. Tanjiro also said downwards following Uzui Tengen's words at this time. What Tanjiro said is right, the other party clearly will also not give us the opportunity to make a mark, so reporting the location will become a very difficult matter. Ryaji also said. As this problem was brought up, Hattori Kyujo, Zenitsu Agatsuma, and also Inashuk all seriously began to think. Have the Kashigai crow follow in the air, this should be a good method. Hattori Kyujo then said at this time. Hearing these words, the crowd also began to think about whether this method was feasible or not. Ryaji was the first to reply, the Kashigai crow flies too slowly, it may not be able to keep up with our speed, and there will be a risk of being discovered. Tier, $10 casual reader, 20 plus advanced chapter. $20 intermediate reader, 40 plus advanced chapter. $40 expert reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 448, chapter 448. Even if it is not discovered, it will take a lot of time for the Kashigai crow to fly back and notify you. Ryaji spoke out the drawbacks of. Even if it is not discovered, it will take a lot of time for the Kashigai crow to fly back and notify you. Ryaji spoke out the drawbacks of the Kashigai crow. Although it may not be the best method, it is worth implementing as an insurance plan. As long as the Kashigai crow tries its best to fly a little higher, out of the range of perception, the other party should be unable to detect it. Uzui Tengen then spoke out his own views at this time. Ryaji did not have any rebuttals, this method could indeed be implemented as an insurance plan. Sound, my ears can hear sounds from very far away, as long as Ryaji-senpai and Tanjiro, when they are running, deliberately amplify their footsteps, and use a specific step frequency, that way I can follow the sound of the footsteps to chase after them. Zenitsu Agatsuma also spoke out a method at this time. Although Ryaji knew that Zenitsu Agatsuma's ears, like Tanjiro's nose, were an extremely sensitive existence, using sound to identify the location did not feel very reliable. If Ryaji and Tanjiro suddenly ran out of Zenitsu Agatsuma's hearing range, then it could be said that Zenitsu Agatsuma would directly be useless. However, if it was coordinated with the Kashigai crow's midway reporting of the location, providing Zenitsu Agatsuma with the approximate direction of action, and then coordinated with his ears, it would indeed not be so easy to lose them. If Zenitsu Agatsuma's nose was as sensitive as Tanjiro's, then it would be much easier to handle. After all, scent was not as easy to lose as sound, sound was almost fleeting, as long as it exceeded Zenitsu Agatsuma's hearing range, there would be no traces to be found. Scent was different, scent could remain in the air for a period of time, it would not be as fleeting as sound. So even if Ryaji and Tanjiro ran far away, they could still continue to track them through the scent that remained on the road. However, scent was easily interfered with by the natural environment. Once the wind picked up, then it would be basically equivalent to losing direction. So scent tracking and sound tracking each had their own advantages and disadvantages. Because he could not think of any very good methods for a time, he could only place his hopes on Zenitsu Agatsuma's extraordinary ears. After that, Uzui Tengen then had a Kashigai crow report the situation here in the red light district to headquarters. However, Uzui Tengen did not actively have headquarters send more manpower over. As for whether headquarters would send manpower over or not, that depended on what headquarters meant. After all, after a period of time, there would be a hard battle to be fought. Then, Ryaji and Tanjiro and also Zenitsu Agatsuma studied sound codes. In order to allow Zenitsu Agatsuma to better feel the sound, Ryaji tried to concentrate the focus of the operation of his breathing on his toes. Because a large amount of water rhythm gathered on his toes, so when Ryaji's toes touched the ground, he could emit that tick sound of water droplets falling into the water surface, because the sound was extremely crisp, and extremely recognizable, and at the same time it was transmitted through the solid medium of the ground, so Zenitsu Agatsuma's ears heard it even more clearly, and it was also not easily interfered with by other background noises. Tanjiro also wanted to learn from Ryaji, but he discovered that he could not do it, and so he had no choice but to give up. In reality, the reason why Tanjiro had failed was because of the lack of breathing realm. his toes were unable to condense a sufficient amount of water rhythm. The group also began to prepare for battle, adjusting their body's condition to the best battle state. When all the things had been prepared properly, and they had checked for any gaps and made up for them one by one, Ryaji's group then fell into an agonizing wait, waiting for Daki's news. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus Advanced Chapter. 449, Chapter 449. News from the Kashgai Crow was transmitted back to the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters one day later. Kaguya Yabayashiki was the first to wreck. News from the Kashgai Crow was transmitted back to the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters one day later. Kaguya Yabayashiki was the first to receive the news that Uzui Tengen had transmitted back. Knowing that Uzui Tengen had encountered a tricky situation, Kaguya Yabayashiki then dispatched the Flame Hashira Kyojuro Rengoku and the Insect Hashira Shinobu Koko to the Red Light District, to support Ryaji and Uzui Tengen. Shinobu Koko and Kyojuro Rengoku both had someone that they were worried about in their hearts. The one that Shinobu Koko was worried about was naturally Ryaji, and the one that Kyojuro Rengoku was worried about was his successor Tanjiro. If Muzan Kibutsuji really wanted to take this opportunity to target Ryaji and Tanjiro, then it was clear that what awaited Ryaji and Tanjiro was very likely to be an encirclement and suppression by an upper-rank demon. Therefore, Kyojuro Rengoku, who had come into contact with upper-rank demons, knew the degree of danger of the situation. Relying only on Uzui Tengen and the members of the Zanjutsu squad would be difficult to cope with. Therefore, Shinobu Koko and Kyojuro Rengoku were very rushed along the way, and had not stopped to rest. On the other side, on the night 2 days later, Ryaji's group finally waited for the other party outside the Kigoku house. The person who showed himself was not Daki, but rather the upper rank 3 that they had encountered on the Infinity Train, Akaza. Akaza was also accompanied by a woman, and this woman was also not Daki. Uzui Tengen, when he saw this woman, immediately excitedly shouted out, "Makio! Tengen!" Makio, seeing Uzui Tengen, also could not restrain the excitement in her heart, wanting to return to Uzui Tengen's side. At the same time, Uzui Tengen also wanted to rush up and pull Makio back. But Akaza immediately put Makio in front of himself, and then pinched Makio's neck, saying, "Don't be anxious. If you don't want her to die, then don't act rashly. Release the person for me. And where is Suma? Where did you take Suma?" Uzui Tengen stopped his steps forward, and then questioned Akaza. Among the passing crowd, they were also frightened by the scene of Akaza and Uzui Tengen confronting each other, and so they all retreated to the side, not daring to come forward. And just as the two sides were confronting each other, it suddenly began to rain heavily. The passers-by on the street all found places to hide from the rain. And Ryaji's group and Akaza, who were standing in the street, were not affected by the rain in the slightest, allowing the rain to fall on their bodies. Ryaji still had a calm face, because it was clear that now was not the time to start a big fight. Zenitsu Agatsuma, on the other hand, sensed Akaza's oppression, and involuntarily shrank behind Ryaji. Inashuk had an appearance as if he wanted to go up and try out the situation, but he was pulled back by Ryaji all of a sudden. Hattori Kyujo quietly stood by Ryaji's side, waiting for orders. "Ryaji-senpai, this sudden heavy rain may have an impact on my hearing, what should I do?" Zenitsu Agatsuma then became vaguely worried, and then moved close to Ryaji's ear and reminded him. In order not to make others worry, and also in order to prevent exposure, Zenitsu Agatsuma had very carefully moved close to Ryaji's ear to say this. Hearing these words, Ryaji also knew that this sudden heavy rain had broken the originally formulated plan. The rain would not only affect Zenitsu Agatsuma's hearing, but it would also affect the Kashgai Crow waiting in the air. Once the Kashgai Crow's feathers were stained with a large amount of rainwater, it would be difficult to fly up. But now he could only bite the bullet and go on. Ryaji had no choice but to encourage Zenitsu Agatsuma, saying, "You must not have any pressure, believe in your own abilities." Now the only thing that he could rely on was Zenitsu Agatsuma's ears, hoping that Zenitsu Agatsuma's ears could eliminate the high-frequency interference of the rain hitting the ground, and distinguish his own special step frequency sound in the noisy environment. Tier, $10 Casual Reader, 20 plus Advanced Chapter. $20 Intermediate Reader, 40 plus Advanced Chapter. $40 Expert Reader, 80 plus advanced chapter. 450, chapter 450. Tanjiro's expression at this time, on the other hand, revealed an undisguisable anger, and then Tanjiro could not help but question Akaza. Tanjiro's expression at this time, on the other hand, revealed an undisguisable anger, and then Tanjiro could not help but question Akaza. Where is Muzan Kibutsuji? Has he come to deal with you? There is no need for the Lord to take action. Akaza said lightly. I am asking you, where is the other girl? Compared to Muzan Kibutsuji, Uzui Tengen was more concerned about his other wife Suma. Akaza also did not have the intention to mystify things, but rather said very directly, the other hostage is not in my hands. I brought this hostage here, just to have her prove to you that the other person is still alive, otherwise if I came empty-handed, you would definitely not believe what I said. Makio, is what he is saying true? Is Suma still alive? Uzui Tengen immediately asked Makio, who was being held hostage by Akaza. Makio nodded her head, and then said, Suma, she is still alive, in that Daki's hands. Let's talk about what you want in order to release the people. Ryaji then interjected and asked Akaza at this time. Hearing these words, Akaza looked towards Ryaji. Akaza's impression of Ryaji could be said to be very deep, because Ryaji was not only super strong, but also full of strangeness. You are called Ryaji, right? There really are not many people who can make me introduce my name. Let me formally introduce myself. My name is Akaza. If you can join us, perhaps we can still become good friends. That slut Daki also seems to like you quite a bit. Perhaps after you join us, you can still pair up with her. This can also be considered a rare and hard to come by happy event among us 12 Kazuki. Akaza also tried to win Ryaji over again. This was not only Muzan Kibutsuji's instructions, but also Akaza's own intention. For powerful people, Akaza would try to win them over. If he could successfully win over a powerful existence, it would undoubtedly make the demon camp become even stronger. There is no need to talk about winning me over. I have not fallen to the point where I need to be someone subordinate. Do you believe it or not? Before long, Muzan Kibutsuji will kneel in front of me and beg for mercy. Ryaji completely did not care about being won over. With his identity as a dimensional traveler, becoming someone subordinate, that was a non-existent thing. Is that so? Akaza also could not help but laugh. He did not know if he was really amused by Ryaji, or if he was mocking Ryaji's overestimation of himself. However, Akaza did not speak out to maintain the image of his master Muzan Kibutsuji, because Akaza felt that Ryaji was only being quick with his tongue, and there was simply no need to argue with him. If you want to save people, you and that brat named Tanjiro, and also that girl who has turned into a demon named Nezuko, should come with me for a trip. As for the others, you all can wait to collect Ryaji and their corpses. Akaza also did not drag things out any longer, but rather said to Ryaji very impolitely. Even if Akaza did not say it, Ryaji also knew that this was such a situation. Akaza had definitely set up a net from all sides in a certain place, waiting for himself and Tanjiro to enter the game. Alright. But can you first release this hostage that you brought? Carrying her should be very cumbersome, right? Ryaji also agreed without thinking too much, and also tried to have Akaza release one person first, although Ryaji also could not guarantee that Akaza would release the person. Akaza was not stupid either. Naturally it was impossible for him to release Makio because of Ryaji's few words.
Every novel listed in the description comes with permanent access to the audiobook on Telegram. You pay once, and if the novel is still ongoing, you'll receive all future updates automatically. No extra cost. Choose your novel from the description, then DM me on Telegram, WhatsApp, or Discord. After payment via PayPal, Ko-Fi, or Patreon, you'll get instant access. Simple, secure, lifetime listening. Guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Your support means a lot.